Chapter 400. Seeing that more and more people were rushing up the golden path, Qin Chuan couldn't help but look at the people beside him and said, "In the secret realm, other than our own people, don't trust anyone. You must remember to protect yourself." Boss, before we set off, we've already heard your words until our ears are about to rot." Chun Changxing smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "Boss, you're the one who should protect yourself the most. You must be careful when you're alone." At this moment, the others also knew that Qin Chuan couldn't move with them because of the agreement with the Qin clan. They all felt that it was a pity and were also worried for Qin Chuan, especially Baiyu. If it wasn't for the fact that she had other companions, she would definitely move with Qin Chuan. "All right, let's go." Luzi looked around and then looked at Qin Chuan. "Take care." Before she finished speaking, Luzi had already flown up the golden path, preparing to enter the carefree secret realm. When the others saw Luzi's actions, they no longer hesitated and stepped onto the golden path, waving goodbye to Qin Chuan. After everyone for the Black Moon Combat Academy left, Qin Chuan also prepared to set off. He glanced at Qin Zhu, who was still standing on the mountain peak, and smiled. His figure flashed and appeared on the golden path, disappearing in an instant. On the mountain peak, everyone from the Qin clan witnessed the process of Qin Chuan stepping onto the golden path. Qin Yiming stretched out his hand and lightly patted Qin Haoshuan's shoulder. He said to Qin Haoshuan, "Haoshuan, go. Let everyone witness your new life and your strength." In a trance, Qin Chuan felt as if his body was light and his soul had left his body. It was as if all the pores on his body had opened at this moment. It was so comfortable that it made him feel drowsy. Boom! A violent explosion sounded in Qin Chuan's mind, instantly waking up the drowsy Qin Chuan. He suddenly opened his eyes and saw a pink sea of flowers. At this moment, memories returned to Qin Chuan's mind. He remembered that he had entered the carefree secret realm. Qin Chuan spun around on the spot and looked around curiously. The fragrance of flowers and the fresh air made Qin Chuan realize that this was not a dream, but a real world. Is this the unfettered mystery realm? But where is this place? Qin Chuan lowered his head and glanced at the optical computer on his wrist. Sure enough, after entering the unfettered secret realm, the optical computer had completely lost its signal and became useless. Seeing this, Qin Chuan took out the hand-drawn map that he had prepared long ago. After comparing it with the map, he was surprised to find that the place he was at was actually not marked on the map. In other words, this was an unknown area. After confirming that he was in an unknown area that had not been explored, Qin Chuan did not know whether to say that he was lucky or unlucky. He looked around, folded the map, and put it into his storage ring. He also stuffed the optical computer into it. Then, he randomly chose a direction and walked forward. After walking for about 100 meters, Qin Chuan found a pattern. The closer he was to the west, the stronger the fragrance of the flowers. In that case, perhaps the center of the sea of flowers was in the west. Thinking of this, Qin Chuan changed his direction and rushed to the west. Just as Qin Chuan had expected, the center of the sea of flowers was in the west. As he moved forward, not only did the fragrance of the flowers become stronger, the unknown pink flowers on the ground also became taller and taller, and the petals became bigger and bigger. After Qin Chuan had moved forward for about 4,000 to 5,000 meters, the pink flowers had grown to the same height as Qin Chuan. Looking at the pink flowers that were as tall as a person in front of him, Qin Chuan instinctively felt that the situation was a bit strange. There was no other reason. This sea of flowers was really too quiet. Other than the flowers in him, there was not even a single insect. It was really too strange. Just as Qin Chuan was considering whether to continue going deeper, a rustling sound suddenly came from the depths of the sea of flowers. This sound became louder and louder in a short period of time, and there were even frightened screams coming out. "Help, help! Walala!" A bloody palm suddenly pushed away a slender but extremely sturdy flower stem, and then a bloody figure rushed out. This person saw Qin Chuan at the first moment and shouted in horror, "Save me! Save me!" Swoosh! At this moment, the surrounding pink flowers seemed to come to life. One by one, they twisted their slender stems, and the pink flowers moved closer to the struggling figure. Fine thorns suddenly grew on the beautiful petals and stabbed fiercely into the person's body. The petals swayed and made a gurgling sound. In the blink of an eye, the person was sucked dry as if drinking water. When almost all the blood and essence in the person's body were absorbed, the pink flowers returned to their original appearance, pure and beautiful. Qin Xuan, who had witnessed the whole process, felt his scalp tingle. He had never thought that these seemingly beautiful flowers would be so cruel and terrifying. However, although Qin Xuan felt terrified, he did not panic and escape because he realized that these flowers did not seem to have any intention of attacking him. Obviously, this was not because these flowers were picky eaters, but because there was a certain condition to trigger the attack of these flowers. Very quickly, Qin Xuan thought of the key point, and that was blood. Qin Xuan compared the flowers near the inside with the flowers outside, and found that the petals and leaves of the flowers inside were sharper and harder. The sharpness was enough to easily cut through human skin. That unlucky guy might have accidentally been cut by the leaves and blood flowed out, which was why he was surrounded by these flowers until he died. In fact, just now, Qin Xuan could have saved this person, but he didn't do so. This was because he had always remembered the advice that Lion Duke and Xin Zhu had given him. Don't show mercy to any strangers. In the carefree secret realm, the most worthless things were innocence and kindness. If he was stained with the other party's blood in the process of saving people, he would definitely become the target of the flowers. At that time, not to mention that person, whether he could leave this place alive or not would be a problem. This carefree secret realm is really full of danger. Qin Xuan took a deep look at the depths of the sea of flowers and prepared to return the way he came, no longer going deeper. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, an astonishing energy fluctuation suddenly came from the front, and the fragrance of the flowers in the surroundings instantly became even stronger. Sensing the astonishing energy fluctuation, Qin Xuan couldn't help but think of what Lion Duke had said to him. If he wanted to cultivate his body faster and better, he had to eat food that contained high energy. Qin Xuan licked the corner of his mouth and said in a low voice, "It's time to eat." Chapter 4:01. After 2 months of arduous training, Qin Xuan's physical body had become extremely strong. After some tests, Qin Xuan found that the leaves of these flowers were not enough to cut his skin. This allowed Qin Xuan to move forward without worry for the time being. After moving forward for about a kilometer, the pink flowers were already 2 meters tall. The leaves had also become sharper. Not only that, but the stems had also begun to grow densely packed tiny spikes. Even with the strength of Qin Xuan's physical body, he might not be able to withstand them. In other words, from here on out, every step Qin Xuan took forward would be accompanied by great danger. If he retreated from here, it would naturally be safe. However, the energy fluctuations were just ahead and were becoming more and more intense. If he left just like that, Qin Xuan was really unwilling. After thinking about it again and again, Qin Xuan decided to use his spiritual energy to protect himself and continue forward. Heaven did not disappoint those who persevered. After moving forward for another 300 meters, Qin Xuan finally arrived at the center of the sea of flowers. In the center of the sea of flowers was an open space with a radius of about 100 meters. In the center of this open space stood a huge flower that was 30 meters tall. This flower was not a uniform pink, but a demonic red. The astonishing energy fluctuations came from this demonic red flower. To be precise, it should be a fruit located in the center of the red flower. The fruit was a perfectly round sphere with a diameter of about 1 meter. It was beating like a heart, attracting Qin Xuan's attention. Feeling it up close, the energy fluctuations have become even more astonishing. Qin Xuan muttered in a low voice. Suddenly, he frowned. No, it's not because of the distance. After every beat, the energy it emits is getting stronger. Qin Xuan took a step forward. Suddenly, a crisp cracking sound came from under his feet. He subconsciously looked down and found that he had inadvertently stepped on a bone. In addition to the bone he had stepped on, there were many more bones around. Seeing the vast expanse of white bones on the ground, Qingchuan's expression could not help but become serious. This flower is called the red enchantress. It was a very famous man-eating flower in ancient times. At this moment, a tall figure slowly walked out from the flowers to the left of Qingchuan. Her appearance was extremely beautiful. She was flirtatious but not vulgar. Her black dress vividly displayed her tight and hot figure. Qingchuan frowned as he looked at the girl in the black dress who had suddenly appeared in front of him. He was extremely vigilant. He had observed the surrounding people when he was at North Mountain, but he had never seen this girl in front of him. With this girl's appearance and temperament, she definitely should not be ignored. The girl seemed to have sensed Qingchuan's wariness towards her. She smiled slightly, her eyes seductive as she softly said, "Are you afraid of me? One must always be on guard against others." Qingchuan indifferently replied. He then asked, "What is the fruit on the red enchantress's head?" The girl smiled and said to Qingchuan, "The red enchantress is pink in the beginning. After absorbing enough flesh and blood essence, it can grow into a red color. After turning red, the red enchantress will begin to condense energy to form a fruit. After a long period of growth, the fruit will mature. What we are looking at now is the fruit of the red enchantress that is about to mature. This fruit contains an extremely large amount of energy. It is extremely beneficial for cultivators who cultivate their physical bodies." While speaking, the girl looked at the white bones around her and sighed. It seems that this red enchantress has absorbed the flesh and blood essence of at least 1,000 people to condense this fruit. Hearing the girl's words, Qingchuan subconsciously looked at the white bones on the ground. His heart trembled. One had to know that these 1,000 people were not ordinary people. Even the weakest was a cultivator in the early stage of the foundation establishment realm. The girl seemed to have thought of the same thing as Qingchuan. She sighed. The flesh and blood essence of more than 1,000 foundation establishment realm cultivators formed this fruit. The energy contained in this fruit must be extremely large. "Friend, do you want to fight with me?" Qingchuan heard this and looked at the girl with a subtle expression. "I'm just looking. If you want to fight, do as you wish." The girl covered her mouth and smiled. She looked at Qingchuan playfully and said, "Do you want to play the game of the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind with me? That's really bad." The girl's voice was extremely gentle and charming. Qingchuan couldn't help but feel his body go soft. He fiercely bit the tip of his tongue, trying to calm himself down. He stepped back and said to the girl, "Please, since you're such a gentleman, then I won't be polite with you." Before her voice fell, the girl walked towards the red enchantress. As the girl approached, the red enchantress didn't move at all, as if it didn't notice the girl's existence. Seeing this, Qingchuan couldn't help knitting his brows. Could it be that the red enchantress didn't have any offensive abilities? But looking at the piles of white bones around them, this clearly wasn't possible. While Qingchuan was thinking about this, the girl was already 50 meters away from the blood enchantress. At the same time, the ground suddenly trembled and thick green roots broke out of the ground, whipping towards the girl. The girl was already prepared for the blood enchantress attack. She nimbly dodged between the roots and closed in another 10 meters in the blink of an eye. During this process, not to mention touching the girl, the roots didn't even touch her clothes. Qingchuan saw the girl's performance and couldn't help narrowing his eyes. He said in a low voice, "What an exquisite movement technique." Just as Qingchuan was sighing, the girl had already walked to a place only 10 meters away from the red enchantress. At this moment, countless tiny thorns suddenly shot out from the red enchantress's enormous stem, heading straight for the girl. Facing this undodgeable attack, the girl's body suddenly lit up with a 5-colored shield, tightly protecting the girl. No matter how the thorns attacked, they couldn't break through this layer of protection. The girl was under the protection of this shield, casually walking in front of the red enchantress. With a light tap of her foot, she jumped onto the flower petals. She was now less than 5 meters away from the attractive red fruit. Seeing this scene, Qingchuan let out a helpless sigh. With his ability, it would be very hard for him to approach the red enchantress as calmly as the girl. It seemed like this fruit was going to fall into the girl's hands. Just as Chuan thought the girl was about to succeed, a layer of red mist suddenly appeared from the fruit and quickly charged at the girl. The five-colored shield couldn't stop the invasion of the red mist, and the mist instantly entered the girl's body. Chapter 4:02. When she saw the red mist coming out of the fruit, the girl already felt that something was wrong. She wanted to dodge, but the red mist came too quickly and too suddenly. She didn't have time to react at all and could only watch as the red mist entered her body. The instant the red mist entered her body, the young girl could clearly feel her body rapidly heating up. Her charming face became boiling hot, and her heart felt hot and uneasy. This strange feeling made the young girl think of a certain possibility, and her face instantly became ugly. Just as she was about to withdraw and find a safe place to adjust her body's condition, she discovered that her entire body began to soften, and she was almost unable to move. The colorful shield also shattered, and, at the same time, the petals of the red enchantress actually began to close. Seeing this scene, the girl finally couldn't hold back the anxiety and fear in her heart. She shouted at Chuan in the distance, "Save me!" In the distance, Chuan witnessed the entire process of the girl being attacked by the red enchantress. At this moment, he heard the girl's cry for help, but he remained indifferent and had no intention of helping. Taking risks for someone he didn't know and even had a competitive relationship with, this was something that even an idiot wouldn't do. Of course, Chuan wouldn't do it. Chuan had never been a kind person. His care and concern were only for the friends around him. Clearly, the trapped girl wasn't in this category. Seeing that the petals of the red enchantress were about to completely close and Chuan was still indifferent, the girl couldn't help but anxiously shout, "As long as you save me, this fruit is yours. I can also tell you how to absorb the energy of this fruit better." Hearing the girl's promise, Chuan's expression changed slightly. He then pointed at his finger and said to the girl, "Your storage ring is also mine." "Okay." Hearing this, the girl agreed without any hesitation. Compared to her own life, mere worldly possessions were nothing. When the girl agreed, Chuan moved. He stepped on the thunderbolt glyph, and his body charged through the layers of roots like lightning. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the flower stem. His feet suddenly exerted force, and his body rushed towards the girl who had fallen on the petals. Just as Chuan wanted to grab the girl's wrist and save her, the petals of the red enchantress suddenly sped up and closed together. Oh no! Chuan's eyes were filled with regret as he looked at the closing petals. He hated himself for being greedy and causing trouble for himself. The petals had deliberately slowed down their closing speed, waiting for him to take the bait. After he fell into the trap, they suddenly sped up, imprisoning him and the young girl together. At the same time, Chuan also noticed that the red fruit was releasing the red mist again. Subconsciously, Chuan held his breath. However, the red mist was all-pervasive and entered Chuan's body in the blink of an eye. Just as Chuan wanted to seal his body to prevent the red mist from entering, the girl beside him suddenly pushed him to the ground with force. In the red mist, the girl's charming face was faintly discernible. Her eyes were filled with amorous emotions that could steal one's soul. Her voice was hoarse and resentful as she whispered in Chuan's ear, "If you dare to touch me, I will definitely kill you." Before she finished speaking, the girl opened her mouth and fiercely bit Chuan's shoulder. In an instant, Chuan's shoulder was bitten open and fresh blood flowed into the girl's mouth. Chuan felt the pain and pushed the girl away. He looked fiercely at the red fruit. Even if he died, he would first get rid of the harmful red fruit. Chuan had always been a man of his words. He angrily roared and suddenly jumped towards the red fruit. He opened his mouth and fiercely bit down on the red fruit. The red fruit's outer skin was extremely fragile and was bitten to pieces by Chuan. After the outer skin was broken, a red crystal liquid flowed out and was swallowed by Chuan without hesitation. When Chuan began to swallow the red fruit's juice, Red Enchantress's huge body suddenly shook violently. It even let out a sharp howl, causing the entire sea of flowers to crazily twist. Gulp, gulp. Qin Chuan felt Red Enchantress's anger and struggle, but he didn't care about it all. He was determined to drink every single drop of this juice. As the juice was swallowed into his stomach, Qin Chuan also felt the heat in his body gradually dissipating. Clearly, this juice was the antidote to the negative effects of the red mist. Just as Qin Chuan was crazily swallowing the juice, the girl who was confused by the red mist also came closer. Her hands randomly groped Qin Chuan's body, and her dark red lips searched everywhere for Qin Chuan's face. Qin Chuan was currently swallowing the juice and didn't have time to pay attention to the girl. After feeling the girl's unrelenting desire to be intimate with him, he clenched his teeth and grabbed the girl's hair. His actions were extremely rough as he fiercely slammed the girl's head against the outer skin of the fruit. With a bang, the girl's head was pressed into the fruit. Huh! Qin Chuan roared at the girl and continued to swallow without care. The girl was also like Qin Chuan and began to crazily swallow the juice. After noticing Qin Chuan and the girl's rough actions, Red Enchantress finally let out an unbearable wail. Countless sharp thorns suddenly grew from the petals and pierced straight towards Qin Chuan and the girl. Poochie! The thorns fiercely pierced into Qin Chuan's body, but they weren't able to pierce through Qin Chuan's body. Clearly, the strength of the thorns wasn't enough to pierce through Qin Chuan's strong body. What was surprising was that the thorns were also unable to pierce through the girl's body. However, this wasn't the time to think about these problems. Qin Chuan had already noticed that the thorns were crazily absorbing the energy in his body. However, because he was crazily swallowing the juice to replenish his energy, the loss of energy didn't have much effect on his body. This scene made Qin Chuan involuntarily think of the water injection and drainage analogy that he once used with Lion Duke. At this moment, his body was a huge pool. Those thorns were the drainage system, and his mouth was the water injection system. As long as he injected the water fast enough and the drainage couldn't keep up, the pool would always be full. He didn't believe that Red Enchantress wouldn't die after he finished drinking all the juice. If Red Enchantress dared to let him out alive, he would definitely burn this sea of flowers so that these flowers couldn't harm people anymore. Chapter 4:03. In the process of swallowing and being swallowed, Qin Chuan's nerves gradually turned from tenacious to numb. In a daze, he even forgot what he was doing. He just mechanically swallowed the juice that flowed to his mouth. When he bumped into another head, he realized in a daze that not a single drop of juice was left in the red fruit. At this moment, Qin Chuan's mind slowly cleared up, and he recalled everything that had just happened. He turned around and looked behind him. He didn't know when, but the red petals had withered, and the wrinkled petals had withered, revealing the clear sky. The thorns that pierced his body had also become soft and had lost their lethality. It turned out that before the juice had run out, the Red Enchantress had already died silently. Seeing that the Red Enchantress had died, Qin Chuan finally let out a long sigh of relief. However, he immediately noticed that something was wrong with his body. The energy contained in the juice that he swallowed was too large. It had long exceeded the limit that his body could bear. At this time, his whole body was swollen, and the pain was unbearable. It was as if he would explode from this energy at any time. Sensing the abnormality in his body, Qin Chuan didn't hesitate. He immediately sat down cross-legged and began to circulate the thunder-devouring art to refine the excess energy in his body. However, at this time, it was as if concrete had been poured into his body. It was extremely difficult for his spiritual power to circulate. It was almost impossible for him to move an inch. This unforeseen event made Qin Chuan's face turn a little ugly. If he couldn't solve this problem in time, he would definitely explode. "I'm so uncomfortable." At this time, a painful groan sounded beside Qin Chuan. The girl in the black dress had a painful expression on her face. Her face was red, as if she was trying her best to endure something. Qin Chuan only needed a glance to understand that the girl in the black dress must have encountered the same situation as him. She had absorbed too much juice in her body. The energy had exploded, but she couldn't digest it. Looking at the young girl's painful struggle, Qinchuan couldn't help but smile bitterly and sigh. It's all my fault for being too greedy. I didn't expect that instead of dying in the hands of the demon clan in the unfettered secret territory, I would die from my own greed. It was too late for Qinchuan to regret it now. He could sense that his body was on the verge of exploding. No matter how hard he tried, he could not successfully circulate the thunder-devouring art. This meant that he could not refine the terrifying energy in his body. He would definitely die. Just as Qinchuan was about to give up struggling and recall the past, the girl in the black dress struggled to get up from the ground and sat across from Qinchuan with difficulty. She stretched out her hands towards Qinchuan and gritted her teeth as she whispered, "Give me your hand, quick!" Although Qinchuan didn't understand what the girl in the black dress wanted to do, this was most likely the only way to save his life. Qinchuan quickly reached out his hands and held the girl's hands tightly. Buzz! The moment the two of them held each other's hands, their bodies trembled almost at the same time. Then, the boundless energy that had nowhere to vent seemed to have found a breakthrough point. It circulated through the tightly clasped hands, and in the process of this circulation, the energy that had accumulated in their bodies finally began to be absorbed. In a cycle after cycle, the pain in their bodies began to ease, and the strength of their bodies soared. When Qinchuan's mind became clear again, it was already a long time later. It was so long that Qinchuan didn't even know what day it was or what time it was. The sky of the unfettered secret territory had always been clear with blue sky and white clouds, so no one could see any changes in time. Qinchuan glanced at the girl in the black dress sitting in front of him and found that the girl was sleeping soundly. Her bright and beautiful face made people want to kiss her. Qinchuan was impulsive. He really kissed the girl's face. The soft touch made Qinchuan's heart flutter, but it also made Qinchuan realize how rude his behavior was. Fortunately, the girl didn't know that all of this had happened. Qinchuan comforted himself. Take this as a thank you gift for saving my life. We'll meet again if fate wills it. The moment the red enchantress withered and died, the entire sea of flowers withered as well. Therefore, Qinchuan didn't need to set a fire to burn the sea of flowers, which saved him a lot of effort. After leaving the withered sea of flowers, Qinchuan didn't immediately continue his journey. Instead, he first found a quieter place to move his body and feel the power in his body. The feeling of being so powerful that it was about to explode made Qinchuan feel as if he was living a dream. I estimate that I only absorbed 30% of the energy in the fruit juice, and it made my body so strong. If I really absorbed all of the energy in the fruit juice, I would definitely be stuffed to death. If Qinchuan's physical strength had increased by 10% in the past 2 months of bitter cultivation, then this time, absorbing the energy in the fruit juice had increased Qinchuan's physical strength by 30% in one go. It was almost 3 times the amount of bitter cultivation in the past 2 months. That girl in the black dress, her physical strength should be about the same as mine. Thinking of the girl in the black dress, Qinchuan couldn't help but think of the kiss he stole. He didn't know why he was so obsessed at that time. He actually wanted to steal a kiss from the sleeping girl in the black dress. He was simply a pervert. After confirming that there was no problem with his body, Qinchuan also prepared to embark on a new journey. He used the artificial sun in the sky to determine the direction and began to head east. 2 hours after Qinchuan left, in the withered sea of flowers, the sleeping girl in the black dress finally woke up. The first thing she did when she opened her eyes was not to check the situation of her body. Instead, she reached out her hand to touch her right cheek. Her pink fingertips accurately touched the place where Qinchuan had kissed before. That damned thief! The black dress girl's face was crimson red, and her expression was one of shame and anger. When Qinchuan had stolen a kiss from her, the truth was that she hadn't been sleeping. Instead, she had been refining the energy within her body, so she hadn't been able to move. As for Qinchuan's actions and his shameful last words, she was well aware of them. The girl in the black dress got up and looked around. After discovering that there was no trace of Qin Chuan, she knew that Qin Chuan had already left. She stomped her feet with some resentment and gnashed her teeth. "Shameless thief, don't let me see you again. Otherwise, I will definitely cut you into pieces." As soon as she finished speaking, the girl in the black dress waved her hand, and a flame fell on the withered red enchantress, igniting it. She snorted coldly, and with a flash of her figure, she rushed toward the east. Chapter 404. In Qin Chuan's understanding, the unfettered secret realm was an extremely large ruin of the universe. However, that understanding was very one-sided because no one had told him how big the unfettered secret realm was. Today, Qin Chuan personally experienced the vastness of the unfettered secret realm. He headed towards the east at full speed. An entire day had passed, and he had been on a grassland. He did not see any figures, nor did he encounter any special situations. It felt as if he was confined in a narrow space, and it was an infinite loop with no end in sight. During this day, Qin Chuan had also wondered if he had encountered an illusion array or if he was hallucinating. However, after repeated inspection, he knew that it was not a problem with his senses, but that the grassland he was in was really too big. The feeling of looking in all directions, there was only green grass, and no matter how you ran, you could not see the end of it. It really made one feel a little desperate. How long are we going to keep running? Qin Chuan had a headache. Could it be that he had chosen the wrong direction? Did he need to change directions? Just as Qin Chuan was thinking about these questions, the sound of fighting suddenly came from the front. Qin Chuan's worried expression immediately turned into excitement. It had been 3 days, and he finally heard the movements of others. After confirming the direction, Qin Chuan immediately moved and quickly approached the place where the sound of fighting came from. Next to a blue stone, a human and a demon were fighting over a dark red grass. The grass was called the red moon grass, and it was the main ingredient in the concoction of the core condensation liquid. It was very rare in the outside world, and it was very valuable. It was no wonder that the human and demon were fighting. "You monkey, you're too much. I was the one who found this red moon grass first." The human youth looked at the yellow-haired monkey in front of him and angrily rebuked it. "Ha ha! Heaven and earth treasures are known to those who are capable. So what if you found the red moon grass first? As long as I kill you, the red moon grass will naturally be mine." This monkey demon was a high-level demon general, equivalent to the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. However, the human youth was only in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. In terms of realm, he was slightly inferior to the monkey demon, and his combat power was also weaker. At this time, he was completely suppressed by the monkey demon. It was only a matter of time before the monkey demon won, but once the human youth was defeated, he would die without a doubt. Looking at the man and demon fighting intensely, Qin Chuan scratched his head and said to them, Can you guys wait a while before fighting?" Hearing the sudden voice of another person, the human and demon separated in an instant. When the monkey demon saw Qin Chuan, a trace of vigilance appeared on its face. However, the human youth was delighted and said to Qin Chuan, you came at the right time. Let's work together to get rid of this monkey demon." Hearing the way the human youth addressed Qin Chuan, the monkey demon couldn't help but squint his eyes. After sizing up Qin Chuan, he said, "So you're Qin Chuan." Qin Chuan curiously looked at the monkey demon and asked, "You know me?" The monkey demon didn't answer Qin Chuan's question. He only looked deeply at Qin Chuan and gave up on fighting for the red moon grass. He turned around and left. Seeing the monkey demon leave, the human youth immediately ran to the green rock and carefully plucked the red moon grass. Then he stored it in a mechanical box that he carried with him. After doing all this, he turned around and looked at Qin Chuan. However, the eagerness and surprise from before were gone. Instead, there was only vigilance. Qin Chuan saw the change in the youth's expression and found it funny. He said indifferently, "I don't covet your red moon grass. You don't have to be so wary of me." "Brother Qin, you've misunderstood. I'm just worried that the monkey demon will come back halfway, so I'm a little cautious. The youth smiled awkwardly. However, he still didn't let down his guard against Qin Chuan. When Qin Chuan saw that the youth was still unwilling to let down his guard, he couldn't be bothered to continue the topic. He changed the topic and said, "Forget it. I just want to ask you for directions. Where are we? We're Xiao Yao Palace, Zijin Palace, and Rainbow Glaze Mansion." Hearing Qin Chuan ask for directions, the youth looked at Qin Chuan with a strange expression. "It's been 6 days. Don't tell me you don't know anything?" Qin Chuan was a little surprised when he heard this. It turned out that he had already been in the Xiao Yao secret realm for 6 days. Qin Chuan was a little curious about the youth's behavior. He asked puzzledly, "What happened in the past few days?" The demon race has a large number of people. They have already divided their forces and occupied Xiao Yao Palace, Zijin Palace, and Rainbow Glazed Mansion. We humans can't get close to these 3 places at all. Now, someone is organizing people to attack one of them. I don't want to participate in the fighting and killing, so I came to the wilderness to try my luck. The youth glanced at Qin Chuan and hesitated. After a moment of hesitation, he said to Qin Chuan, "I advise you not to go to these 3 places. The demon race has already said that they will kill you if they see you. They even issued a reward. As long as someone can provide information about you, there will be a reward." Although Qin Chuan was already mentally prepared, he was still shocked by the young man's words. Those demon clans were really unscrupulous in order to deal with him. They even offered a reward for his capture. Qin Chuan looked at the youth with a strange expression and asked, "Don't you plan to use my information to exchange for a reward?" The youth shook his head and said, "I am a human, and you are also a human. Although there is a competitive relationship between us, I am not shameless enough to use your information to exchange for a reward from the demon race. If I really do so, I am afraid that I will not be tolerated by the human race in the future. You are quite clear-headed." Qin Chuan chuckled and said, "I have one last thing to trouble you. Help me point out the nearest place to Freedom Palace, Zijin Palace, and 7-colored Glazed Manor. Are you sure you want to go?" The youth looked at Qin Chuan with a puzzled expression. "Although you are quite strong, you are still somewhat lacking compared to the holy sons of the demon race. You don't have to worry about that. I have a reason to go." Qin Chuan smiled and said to the youth, "Please point the way." Seeing that Qin Chuan was so insistent, the youth no longer tried to persuade him. He pointed to the front and said to Qin Chuan, "The 7-colored Glazed Manor is in that direction. The human race is preparing to attack the 7-colored Glazed Manor. If you feel that it is dangerous, you can go with everyone." "Thank you." Qin Chuan chuckled and flew in the direction pointed out by the youth. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. On the grassland, the youth stood beside the green stone and watched Qin Chuan's figure disappear into the distance. Suddenly, a trace of coldness appeared in his eyes. Chapter 405. Qin Chuan dashed in the direction pointed out by the young man. In less than 10 minutes, he encountered the monkey demon that had escaped earlier. Not long after Qin Chuan discovered the monkey demon also discovered Qin Chuan's trace. He thought that Qin Chuan was chasing after him, so he couldn't help but run with all his might. Seeing this, Qin Chuan couldn't help but laugh. This monkey demon was quite arrogant just now. Why was he scared now? Seeing that Qin Chuan was getting closer and closer to him, the monkey demon couldn't help but say angrily, "Qin Chuan, don't be too arrogant. The 7-colored Glazed Mansion is the gathering place of my demon clan. You humans are all in Zijin Palace. Are you going to chase me to the 7-colored Glazed Mansion?" Hearing the monkey demon's words, Qin Chuan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly and ask, "You said that the humans are all in Zijin Palace? Didn't you demon clan divide into 3 groups and occupy Xiao Yao Palace, Zijin Palace, and 7-colored Glazed Mansion?" The monkey demon was stunned for a moment and subconsciously said, "What nonsense are you talking about? If my demon clan divided into 3 groups, wouldn't it give you humans a chance to take us down one by one?" This time, the person who was stunned was Qin Chuan. After thinking for a while, Qin Chuan understood that he might have been deceived by the young man. After thinking about this, Chinchuan's expression couldn't help but become a little gloomy. He didn't understand why the young man would make up a lie to deceive him. If he really plunged into the seven-colored glaze mansion, he might really die inside. Chinchuan took a deep look at the monkey demon and asked, "Does her demon clan have a warrant for me?" The monkey demon said to Chinchuan with a murderous look, "Princess Rao once ordered that once you enter the Xiaoyao secret realm, any demon clan member who sees Chinchuan must kill him." Princess Rao? Hearing this slightly familiar name, Chinchuan asked suspiciously, "The Princess Rao you're talking about, is it the Princess Rao that was almost defiled by Shi Fun? How dare you? How dare you slander Princess Rao? Die." The monkey demon, who was thinking about how to escape from Chinchuan's pursuit, was furious when he heard Chinchuan's words. He immediately gave up the idea of escaping and turned back to attack Chinchuan. Chinchuan was speechless when he saw the monkey demon's face turn red with anger. Why was this monkey demon so agitated? Wasn't he just stating an objective fact? Was there need to be so angry? Die! The monkey demon roared. He raised his hand and punched out. His hairy arm instantly swelled and turned into the thickness of a bucket. He smashed it down on Chinchuan's head. Facing the monkey demon's angry attack, Chinchuan didn't dodge. He directly raised his hand to block. Seeing Chinchuan's response, the monkey demon couldn't help but sneer. It was impossible for Chinchuan's small arm to block his punch. Bang! The monkey demon's fist landed solidly on Chinchuan's right arm. However, the scene of Chinchuan's arm breaking did not appear as the monkey demon had expected. He realized that his fist seemed to have landed on the hardest rock in the world. Not only did it not cause any damage to the rock, but his fist was in so much pain that it felt like it was about to split open. While the monkey demon was still in shock and confusion, Chinchuan had already reached out his left hand and grabbed the monkey demon's wrist. Then, he slammed the monkey demon to the ground like a sandbag, causing a loud bang. Looking at the monkey demon who was half buried in the ground and unable to move, Chinchuan said indifferently, "Answer a few questions of mine, and I can spare your life." Hearing Chinchuan's words, the monkey demon gritted his teeth and said, "Kill me." "Oh, you're quite stubborn." Chinchuan chuckled. "If you don't cooperate with me, I won't be in a hurry to kill you. I'll torture you first. By the way, have you heard of the monkey stealing peaches?" Hearing Chinchuan's threat, the monkey demon's face turned from pale to red. He was ashamed and angry. He said angrily, "You've gone too far. Cut the crap and answer me. What kind of experts does your demon clan have in the seven-colored glazed mansion? How strong are they?" Chinchuan looked at the monkey demon with a smile and said, "If you don't answer my questions, I'll steal one of your peaches first." The monkey demon was furious. He couldn't wait to swallow Chinchuan alive. However, he couldn't resist being pressed to the ground by Chinchuan. Facing Chinchuan's threat, he could only answer in humiliation. "This time, a total of 6 saints of my demon clan have entered the unfettered secret realm. They are the Flying Rock Saint of the Heavenly Rock Tribe, the Chao Rong Saint of the Golden Leopard Tribe, the Bai Feng Saint of the Falcon Tribe, the Thousand Snake Saint of the Great Serpent Tribe, the Sun Yu Saint of the Great Sage Tribe, and the Ma Jiaoan Saintess of the Heavenly Horse Tribe." Hearing the monkey demon's answer, Chinchuan was a little curious and asked, "How strong are these 6 saints?" The 6 saints are all at the peak of the demon general realm. Their strength is comparable to that of a half-step demon commander. When mentioning the strength of these 6 saints, the monkey demon couldn't help but reveal a proud expression. He said to Chinchuan, "You'd better let me go. Otherwise, our Sun Yu Saint of the Great Sage Tribe will never forgive you." "You're really confident." Chinchuan rolled his eyes and continued to ask, "What's your next plan of action? You can't be staying in the 7-colored glazed mansion forever, right?" "My status is low, so I don't know." The monkey demon was vague. Obviously, he didn't want to answer Chinchuan's question. Chinchuan could also see that, but he was too lazy to expose the monkey demon. Chinchuan clapped his hands and stood up. He said to the monkey demon, "Go back and tell your demon clan saints and Princess Rao that I don't have time to play with them. If they don't provoke me, I won't do anything to them. If they're determined to find trouble with me, then they should be mentally prepared to be killed by me." The monkey demon looked at Qin Chuan in surprise and asked, "You're not going to kill me?" Qin Chuan was also surprised. "You want to die?" Looking at the monkey demon running away, Qin Chuan curled his lips and said, "I thought you weren't afraid of death." After ridiculing the monkey, Qin Chuan's expression gradually became serious. After understanding the situation of the unfettered secret territory, Qin Chuan decided not to go to the seven-colored glazed mansion. Although he was very confident in his strength, he wasn't blindly arrogant enough to think that the 6 demon clan's saints were no match for him. As for the Violet Gold Mansion, it was a gathering place of the human clan. However, Qin Chuan also didn't want to go there. He decided to change his direction and go to the Unfettered Palace. Just as Qin Chuan was studying the map and the route, the monkey demon that had just escaped met another person who was asking for directions. "Little monkey, tell me where your saint is." The girl in black looked at the monkey demon coldly and asked, "Also, have you seen a very wretched man?" Chapter 406. As the place with the richest treasures in the unfettered secret territory, the Zijin Palace had always been the most lively place every time the unfettered secret territory opened. However, as time passed, the treasures in the Zijin Palace were basically all plundered. Only some treasures, under the protection of powerful restrictions, had not been taken away. As early as the previous few times when the unfettered secret territory opened, the Zijin Palace had become unpopular. Very few people would go to the Zijin Palace to look for treasures. This time was no exception. However, because of some special reasons, the human race had set the Zijin Palace as the gathering place. The Zijin Palace was located on a spiritual mountain in the eastern part of the unfettered secret territory. It was built entirely with purple gold, hence the name Zijin Palace. The Zijin Palace was divided into 3 halls. The front hall was the main hall. It was also the place with the richest treasures. Now it had been emptied. The middle hall had the most restrictions. There were also many treasures hidden under these restrictions. However, these restrictions were so strong that it was impossible for a foundation establishment stage cultivator to open them. However, the cultivators who could enter the unfettered secret territory were all foundation establishment stage cultivators. This led to an awkward situation where no one could take the treasures in the middle hall. The back hall, which was also the treasure pavilion in the Zijin Palace, was the most mysterious. Since the unfettered secret territory was discovered, several thousand years had passed. No one had been able to enter the treasure pavilion to explore. What exactly was inside the treasure pavilion was still a mystery. In the front hall of the Zijin Palace, nearly 100 figures were standing in groups of 3 to 5. All of them were somewhat silent. In the center of the crowd, 4 figures stood together. It could be said that they attracted the attention of the majority of the people in the hall. Qin Haoshuan, Yi Qingning, Su Kuang, and Ximen Bei. These 4 people were not unfamiliar to the crowd. This was because they were all famous geniuses in the Star Dragon Federation. At the same time, they were also the temporary leaders of these people. In other words, these people did not disperse to look for treasures. Instead, they gathered here because of the summons of these 4 people. Qin Haoshuan, how long do we have to wait? Ximen Bei frowned and looked at Qin Haoshuan. They had been waiting here for 3 days without doing anything. If they continued to wait like this, the unfettered secret territory would close. Ximen Bei's question was also the others' question. Their main purpose of coming to the unfettered secret territory was to look for treasures, not to gather and fight. Demon race had always been united. Demon race had always been united. Each small troop had more than 100 people. Qin Haoshuan looked at Ximen Bei indifferently and asked, "Every time the carefree secret territory opens, our human clan will be bullied by the demon clan. We have to watch them do whatever they want. Don't you want to give the demon clan a fierce blow this time and win glory for our human clan?" Qin Haoshuan, you are too naive. Yi Qingning said helplessly, "We've already spread the news as far as we can. But look, after 3 days, we've only gathered a few people. Do we have to keep waiting like this? Yi Qingning entered the unfettered secret territory this time because she had a mission. She didn't want to do this kind of meaningless, time-consuming thing. Am I naive? Or are you all too selfish? Qin Haoshuan sneered. Can't our Star Dragon Federation rise once in the unfettered secret territory? I think Qin Xuan must have damaged your brain. Su Kuang, who had been silent all this time, suddenly opened his mouth. His first sentence was like a sharp knife stabbing into Qin Haoshuan's heart. Yi Qingning and Shimin Bei didn't expect that Su Kuang would mention Qin Xuan in front of Qin Haoshuan. He mentioned that unbearable past. However, what surprised them even more was that Qin Haoshuan didn't get angry because of this. He was extremely calm. I know very well whether my brain has been damaged or not, but I know even more clearly that your courage has been destroyed. Qin Haoshuan looked at Su Kuang coldly. If you want to leave, then leave now. I won't stop you. The same goes for you. Qin Haoshuan looked at Yi Qingning and Shimin Bei and said in a deep voice, I hope you won't regret it when I wipe out the entire monster race and become famous. Where does your confidence come from? Shimin Bei looked at Qin Haoshuan with a puzzled look. He was very clear about Qin Haoshuan's strength. With Qin Haoshuan's strength, wiping out the entire monster race in one fell swoop was simply like a dream. Qin Haoshuan sneered. I naturally have a way. As long as you listen to me, we will wipe out the monster race in one fell swoop. The treasures in the unfettered secret territory will be ours to search for. Don't you want to search for treasures without any interference? Looking at Qin Haoshuan's solemn expression, Yi Qingning slightly frowned. After thinking for a while, she said, Give us a specific time. We can't wait here forever. It should be soon. Qin Haoshuan looked at Yi Qingning with a subtle expression. 6 days have passed. You should show up. Compared to the liveliness of Zijin Palace and colorful glazed mansion, Unfettered Palace, the most magnificent building in the unfettered secret territory, could be said to be quite deserted. The reason was very simple. Unfettered Palace didn't have any treasures. It was just the place where Unfettered Z used to cultivate. To put it bluntly, Unfettered Palace was a large cultivation room. It had the effect of calming people's mind and was very helpful for breaking through bottlenecks. However, other than that, there was nothing magical about it. The people who entered the unfettered secret territory were all in the Foundation establishment realm. There was basically no problem with bottlenecks in cultivation. Therefore, Unfettered Palace was a rather useless place for everyone. Very few people would go to Unfettered Palace. If there was anything attractive about Unfettered Palace, it was because of Unfettered Z's residence, Unfettered Residence. Unfettered Residence was located in the depths of Unfettered Palace. It was a thatched cottage. There was an extremely powerful prohibition around the thatched cottage. Once it was touched, a thunder punishment would descend, and the person who touched it would be turned into ashes. For many years, countless people had tried to break the prohibition of Unfettered Residence. However, no one had succeeded. Gradually, people stopped trying. Unfettered Palace had become completely deserted. From afar, Qin Xuan could already see Unfettered Palace sitting on top of the snow-capped mountain. He couldn't help but be shocked. Such a magnificent palace seemed to be carved out of white jade. It was clean and flawless. It made people feel that they couldn't bear to profane it. Although I know that there are very few people in Unfettered Palace, there are too few people here. Qin Xuan looked around. Along the way, he met fewer and fewer people. Until now, he hadn't met anyone for nearly 2 hours. Chapter 407. Qin Xuan stood at the foot of the snowy mountain. Looking at the long white jade steps that seemed to reach the sky, Qin Xuan stepped up. Xiaoyao Palace was a place with strict rules. Once one stepped on the white jade steps, it was equivalent to entering the territory of Xiaoyao Palace. No matter who you were or what cultivation you had to walk step by step. It was absolutely forbidden to cross dozens of meters in an instant or even leap. Once you did so, what awaited you would be the thunder punishment prohibition of Xiaoyao Palace. There were once people who didn't believe in heresy and dashed dozens of meters on the white jade steps in the blink of an eye. In the next moment, they were turned into ashes by the thunder punishment and died without a burial place. Since then, no one dared to challenge the thunder punishment prohibition of Xiaoyao Palace. It would take at least half a day to walk from the foot of the snowy mountain to Xiaoyao Palace. It could be said that the thunder punishment prohibition was the reason why Xiaoyao Palace was so deserted. Qin Chuan was like a pilgrim, walking forward step by step. He wasn't bored enough to remember how many steps he had walked. He just kept his head down and walked up. When Qin Chuan finished walking and stood in front of Xiaoyao Palace, it was already 10 hours later. The sky of Xiaoyao's secret realm was still clear with blue sky and white clouds. No one could see the slightest change in time. Phew! Qin Chuan let out a long sigh of relief and walked to the square of Xiaoyao Palace. This was the place where Xiaoyao Zi's disciples and grand disciples cultivated daily. Qin Chuan found a suitable place and sat on the ground. He began to circulate the thunder-devouring scripture to cultivate and recover his physical strength. After circulating the scripture for 2 cycles, Qin Chuan slowly opened his eyes and looked at the sky. He exerted strength in his legs and jumped up. Rumble! Almost at the moment when Qin Chuan jumped up, a thunderbolt suddenly fell from the sky and struck Qin Chuan's head. Qin Chuan was hit by the thunder punishment and fell to the ground. He quickly resumed his sitting posture and started to circulate the thunder-devouring scripture again. The power of the thunder punishment that poured into Qin Chuan's body was refined into pure thunder power by the thunder-devouring scripture and absorbed into his body. 10 minutes later, Qin Chuan opened his eyes again with a smile on his face. He said in a low voice, "When I heard that Xiaoyao Palace had thunder punishment, I felt that this place was definitely a holy place for me to cultivate. I didn't expect that this thunder punishment could be used by me. The lightning punishment might have been a punishment to others, but to Qin Chuan, who had a thunder attribute talent rune and possessed the thunder-devouring art, it was a huge surprise." The thunder-devouring scripture relied on devouring things with the thunder attribute to cultivate. In the past, Qin Chuan didn't have such conditions. At most, he could absorb the thunder spiritual power in the thunder spiritual stone to cultivate. After hearing about Xiaoyao Palace, Qin Chuan had already made up his mind. In these 2 months, besides helping the Qin family to find the key, he would stay here and cultivate until the Xiaoyao secret realm closed. He wouldn't go anywhere. After a short rest, Qin Chuan jumped up again. This time, a thunder punishment fell and struck his head. However, compared to the last time, this thunder punishment seemed to be stronger. 20 minutes later, Qin Chuan opened his eyes, raised his eyebrows slightly, and jumped up again. Another hour passed. Qin Chuan finally got the hang of it. Every time he triggered a thunder punishment, the power of the thunder punishment would be stronger than before. According to Qin Chuan's estimation, after 4 or 5 more times, he would reach the limit of what he could bear. However, he didn't know how long it would take for the thunder punishment's power to be reset. After thinking for a while, Qin Chuan decided to continue his next cultivation and jumped up again. Rumble! An azure thunderbolt descended from the sky and struck the Xiaoyao Palace fiercely, producing an earth-shattering roar. How strange! Why would there be thunder in Xiaoyao Palace? On a plain not far from Xiaoyao Palace, Duan Yusin frowned slightly and was puzzled. She didn't connect the thunder and the thunder punishment prohibition of Xiaoyao Palace at all. As far as she knew, there had never been such a terrifying thunder punishment prohibition in Xiaoyao Palace. No one would want to trigger such a terrifying thunder punishment prohibition. However, how could Duan Yusin know that there really was a lunatic in this world who was crazy enough to trigger the thunder punishment prohibition of Xiaoyao Palace? It has been 8 days. Where is Lin Lin? Duan Yusin was a little irritated. On the opening day of the Xiaoyao secret land, she and Zhou Lin arrived late. They could be said to be the last batch of people to enter the Xiaoyao secret land. At that time, they had agreed to meet at the 7-colored glazed mansion. However, now that the demon clan had occupied the 7-colored glazed mansion, she didn't dare to wander around. She could only search for Zhou Lin's whereabouts. Until now, there was no news at all. She didn't even meet anyone she knew. In a situation where she was alone and couldn't guarantee her own safety, Duan Yusin could only come to Xiao Yao Palace to try her luck. She didn't expect to encounter such a special event like the thunder in Xiao Yao Palace. Just as Duan Yusin was about to continue moving forward, she suddenly heard the sound of fighting behind her. She turned around and saw 4 half-human, half-beast demon race chasing after 2 humans. The 2 humans were already battered and exhausted. Their bodies were covered in blood, and it seemed that they were about to die. Help! After the 2 humans saw Duan Yusin's figure, they cried for help without hesitation. In response to the 2 humans' cries for help, Duan Yusin struck out her palm. A powerful force went straight to the demon clan member who was the closest to her. After striking out with her palm, Duan Yusin turned around and ran, heading straight for Xiao Yao Palace. Striking out with her palm to relieve the pressure on the 2 humans who were being chased was the limit of what Duan Yusin could do. If she really went all out to save them, the final result would be the 3 of them dying in the hands of the 4 demon clan members. Risking one's life to save another also depended on who the other party was. The direction Duan Yusin fled in could be considered as a clear path for the 2 humans. As long as they ran into the boundary of Xiao Yao Palace, under the circumstances of the Thunder Punishment Prohibition, the 4 demon clan members wouldn't be able to do anything to them. However, the 4 demon clan members had naturally thought of the same thing. How could they let go of the prey that was already in their hands so easily? Whoosh! Among the 4 demon clan members, a half-human, half-beast leopard suddenly transformed into his original form, turning into a vigorous cheetah. He landed on all 4s and dashed towards the 2 humans like lightning. He opened his bloody mouth and bit one of the humans' shoulder, ruthlessly tearing off an arm. In the midst of the screams, the 2 humans suffered one after another. Hearing the blood-curdling screams coming from behind her, Duan Yusin's face couldn't help but turn deathly pale. Her running speed increased by 30%. If she couldn't enter the area of Xiao Yao Palace before the 4 members of the Goblin clan caught up with her, she would definitely die. Chapter 408. Do you really think you can run away? The chubby Baiju stared greedily at Duan Yusin's exquisite figure. He smiled wretchedly and said, "As long as you stop, I promise I won't kill you. I'll only make you feel good." Hearing Baiju's words, the other 3 demons laughed wretchedly. They were chasing after Duan Yusin and were not in a hurry to block her path. They were toying with her like a cat toying with a mouse. Hearing the obscenities behind her, Duan Yusin was furious, but she did not dare to slow down. Seeing Duan Yusin quicken her pace, Baiju looked at Jin Bao and said, "Don't let her run away. You go and stop her." Jin Bao smiled and said, "Stopping her is not a problem, but I'll do it first." Hearing Jin Bao's words, the other 3 demons laughed again. Of course, they did not have any objections. Since they had reached an agreement, Jin Bao did not waste time. He immediately transformed into his original form and caught up with Duan Yusin at full speed, blocking her path. Duan Yusin did not stop running because of Jin Bao's obstruction. Without hesitation, she pulled out an alloy long knife from her waist. She poured her spiritual power into it and created a sharp, wavy blade. She slashed it at Jin Bao's head, making a loud, buzzing sound. Golden Leopard sneered. With a flash of his body, he dodged the blade like a ghost. The Golden Leopard tribe had always been known for their speed. To Golden Leopard, such an attack was like slow motion. It posed no threat at all. However, just as Jin Bao dodged, Duan Yusin did not continue to chase him. Instead, she rushed through the gap. Golden Leopard's expression suddenly turned gloomy when he saw Duan Yusin flee. He hadn't expected that Duan Yusin would actually play tricks on him and allow him to escape. "Ha ha ha, Chao Ji, can you do it?" Baiju mocked Jin Bao without holding back. "If you keep running, I'm afraid you won't have the strength to last much longer. Damn fat pig, you should worry about yourself first." Jin Bao snorted coldly. He exerted his strength again and caught up with Duan Yusin. When she was less than 2 kilometers away from the snowy mountain, Duan Yusin had no choice but to stop. This was because the golden leopard had once again blocked her path. Let's see where you can run to this time. Golden leopard sneered. If you give up now, you might be able to live a little longer. In the face of the golden leopard's threat, Duan Yusin's expression turned solemn. She glanced at the few guys surrounding her, trying to find the weakest one to break out of the encirclement. However, before she could find any clues, the other party could no longer hold back and took the initiative to attack. If it was only one opponent, Duan Yusin still had the strength to fight, but facing 4 opponents at the same time, Duan Yusin almost didn't have the strength to resist. After a few rounds, she was knocked down to the ground. If it wasn't for the other party deliberately holding back and not having the intention to kill, Duan Yusin might have been a corpse by now. Haha, we've agreed before. Let me do it first. Golden Leopard looked at Duan Yusin, who was lying on the ground, and laughed. He looked extremely pleased with himself. When Duan Yusin saw the wretched expression on Golden Leopard's face, she could not help but feel despair. She was about to bite her tongue and commit suicide when suddenly, a piercing sound pierced through the air. A sharp long sword pierced Golden Leopard's heart and pinned him to the ground. Roar, roar, roar. Golden Leopard, who had suddenly been attacked, opened his mouth and let out an extremely miserable cry. The other 3 guys turned around at the same time and looked in the direction of a longsword. They saw a girl in a blue dress flying towards them like lightning. She raised her hand and struck White Boar, sending him flying. Blood splattered across the sky. From the moment Golden Leopard was attacked to White Boar being sent flying, all of this happened in the blink of an eye. Seeing how powerful the girl was, the other 2 demons turned around and ran without hesitation. However, the girl did not give them any chance to escape. Her first attack was a killing blow. Slash! The girl roared angrily and the ground trembled. 2 sharp swords suddenly shot out from the ground and pierced through the 2 demons from bottom to top. Their souls were scattered into the air. Who would have thought that the 4 demons who had forced Duan Yusin into a corner would not even be able to withstand one attack from this girl? After dealing with the 4 demons, the girl immediately walked to Duan Yusin's side and asked with concern, "How are you?" "I'm fine." Duan Yusin stared at the girl in pleasant surprise and sobbed. "Lin Lin, if you hadn't arrived in time, I might really have died." That's right. The girl who had suddenly appeared and killed the 4 demons with lightning speed was Duan Yusin's best friend, Zhou. Hearing Duan Yusin's words, Zhou pulled Duan Yusin into her arms and casually took out a bottle of healing fluid and fed it to Duan Yusin. She then explained, "After I entered the carefree secret realm, the first thing I did was to head towards the Rainbow Glaze Mansion. However, I bumped into many demons along the way. After asking around and finding out that the demons had already occupied the Rainbow Glaze Mansion, I've been looking for you everywhere. When I passed by this place, I heard some movement, so I came to look for you. I didn't expect to run into you here." Speaking of which, Duan Yusin was lucky. If Zhou had not passed by this place and had not come to take a look out of curiosity, she might have been a dead person by now. After taking the healing fluid, Duan Yusin felt a little better. She then told Zhou, "I was strolling around here when I bumped into these 4 demons who were chasing after 2 seriously injured humans. That's how I ended up being dragged into this mess." Speaking of this, Duan Yusin's face could not help but turn gloomy. She then whispered to Zhou, "I feel that I shouldn't have come here. I'm too weak. I can't do anything here." "Don't say that." Zhou comforted Duan Yusin softly. "You were just surrounded. Now that the 2 of us are together, this kind of thing won't happen again." Rumble. Just as Zhou was comforting Duan Yusin, the sound of thunder once again resounded above Carefree Palace. This time, it was even louder and more terrifying than before. Hearing the sudden thunder, Zhou was a little surprised. She raised her head and looked at Carefree Palace. Puzzled, she asked, "Why is there thunder in Carefree Palace?" It happened once before. Duan Yusin recalled the thunder she had heard not long ago and speculated, could it be that some kind of rare treasure has appeared in Carefree Palace? Hearing this, Jolin could not help but recall what her father had told her before she entered the carefree secret realm. If that kind of thing really existed, the possibility of it appearing in Carefree Palace was extremely high. Looking at Carefree Palace that had regained its peace, Jolin pondered for a moment and said to Duan Yusin, "Come, let's go up the mountain." Chapter 409. Ouch, ouch, ouch. It's so painful. On the square in front of Xiao Yao Palace, a charred figure was lying on the ground, twitching intermittently and letting out painful groans from time to time. This charred figure was none other than Qin Chuan, who had been triggering the Thunder Punishment Prohibition spell to cultivate. The reason why he became like this was because the power of the Thunder Punishment Prohibition spell was too turbulent when he triggered it for the 9th time. His body could not withstand it at all. Before the thunder-devouring scripture could refine the power of the Thunder Punishment Prohibition spell, he became like this. At this time, Qin Chuan could not move, but he still persisted in running the thunder-devouring scripture to refine the power of the Thunder Punishment Prohibition spell in his body. He did not dare to relax at all. As long as he refined the excess power of the Thunder Punishment Prohibition spell in his body, he could regain control of his body. Although Qin Chuan's current situation seemed to be quite bitter and even a little miserable, the benefits he obtained were also extremely amazing. After going through the 9 consecutive Thunder Punishment Prohibition spells, Qin Chuan's body was strengthened again, and his realm was also improved. He successfully broke through from the middle stage of Foundation Establishment to the late stage of Foundation Establishment. At this time, Qin Chuan could be said to be bursting with confidence. After his body recovered, he would go to the 7-colored Glaze Mansion to meet the 6th Holy Son of the Demon Clan. He wanted to test how strong his current combat power was. If the 6th Holy Son of the Demon Clan could not withstand his attack, he would not mind killing all of them. Just as Qin Chuan was dreaming of killing everyone, the human clan gathered in the Purple Gold Mansion finally made a new move. Now, more than 400 human clan cultivators had gathered in the Purple Gold Mansion. Most of them were from aristocratic families and sects, and only a few were civilians. In the past, the human clan had never gathered such a powerful force in the Little Demon Secret Realm. This also gave them unprecedented confidence in resisting the Demon Clan. Qin Haoshuan, there are already more than 400 people. If you don't plan to take action, we won't accompany you anymore. Su Kuang had always been a straightforward person. Now that they had gathered such a powerful force around them, there was really no need to continue delaying. That's what I meant too. Yi Qingming made her stance clear. There was no point in wasting time. Shimin Bei didn't say anything. He just frowned and looked at Qin Haoshuan. If Qin Haoshuan couldn't say anything, he would turn around and leave. Facing the impatient crowd, Qin Haoshuan smiled and said, "Since the opening of the Carefree Secret Land, everyone has waited with me for 7 days. There is indeed no need to continue waiting. Let's gather everyone and set off for the Carefree Palace." Xiao Yao Palace. Yi Qingming looked at Qin Haoshuan in confusion and asked, "Why Xiao Yao Palace?" Su Kuang looked at Qin Haoshuan with a subtle expression and said in a deep voice, "If the intelligence is correct, the demon race's army is indeed gathered at the 7-colored Glazed Mansion. If you want to fight against the demon race, shouldn't you go to the 7-colored Glazed Mansion? We didn't deliberately conceal our actions these days. The demon race must have some understanding of our situation. They have occupied the 7-colored Glazed Mansion and must be on guard against us. Therefore, if you want to go to the Carefree Palace, you must have a way to lure the demon race out." Shimin Bei looked deeply at Qin Haoshuan. He didn't think that Qin Haoshuan was the kind of person who would do useless things. Shimin Bei is right. I do have a way to lure the demon race out. Qin Haoshuan smiled and said to everyone, "You should have heard the news. The demon race is going all out to arrest Qin Chuan." Hearing Qin Haoshuan mention Qin Chuan, everyone's expression changed slightly. Yi Qingming looked at Qin Haoshuan with a puzzled expression and asked, "You want to use Qin Chuan to lure the demon race to the Carefree Palace? Even if the demon race comes, how are we going to fight against them?" "I have this." Qin Haoshuan took out a brocade box from the storage ring on his hand and opened it. A quaint key appeared in front of everyone's eyes. He said to everyone, this time, everyone entered the carefree secret realm with a mission. I don't need to tell you what the mission is, right? Hearing this, Su Kuang's expression changed. He took a deep look at the key in Qin Haoshuan's hand and asked, this is the key to the carefree secret realm? Yi Qingming and Ximenbei's expressions also changed. They hadn't done anything yet, but Qin Haoshuan had already gotten the key. Don't get me wrong, this is just a fake key. It's not the real key to the carefree secret realm. Qin Haoshuan smiled and said to the crowd, but no one will know that this is a fake key. Tell me, if the monster race knows that we have the key to the carefree secret realm and are going to use it to open the restriction formation outside the carefree residence, will the monster race be able to keep calm? We can use this fake key to set up an inescapable net and wait for the demon race to walk into it. Hearing Qin Haoshuan's plan, everyone fell into contemplation. They had to admit that this was a feasible and even a good plan. Once the demon race was fooled, they would indeed have a great chance to severely injure or even wipe out the demon race and achieve a beautiful victory. But the key question was, what did this have to do with Qin Chuan? What does this inescapable net have to do with Qin Chuan? Ximenbei looked at Qin Haoshuan with a complicated expression. He didn't want Qin Haoshuan to do anything that would harm Qin Chuan. Qin Haoshuan looked at Ximenbei with a subtle expression and said, Ximenbei, I know that you have a good relationship with Qin Chuan, but in the face of a major event that concerns the human race, I hope you can remain calm and rational. I think that if it's just a key, it won't be enough to completely attract the demon race. But if Qin Chuan is involved, it will be different. Ximenbei frowned and asked, what do you mean? What I mean is that we will hand over the key to Qin Chuan and let Qin Chuan lure the demon race's army to our preset ambush point. Qin Haoshuan looked at Ximenbei and said, I think that this shouldn't be a difficult task for Qin Chuan. The reason for choosing Xiao Yao Palace is very simple. First, everyone is clear about the situation of Xiao Yao Palace. There are very few people there. It is very suitable for us to set up an ambush. Second, the situation of Xiao Yao Palace is very special. If we encounter an accident while encircling the demon race, retreating to Xiao Yao Palace will be a very good choice. Lastly, Qin Chuan is currently in Xiao Yao Palace. If we want Qin Chuan to cooperate with us, we will need you to persuade him. Hearing Qin Haoshuan's words, everyone once again fell into contemplation. They had to admit that Qin Haoshuan's words had moved them. If the plan could be implemented smoothly, they might really be able to inflict heavy losses on the demon race. Chapter 410. Xiao Yao Palace. After dozens of hours of climbing, Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin finally arrived at the square in front of Xiao Yao Palace. Looking at the magnificent dojo in front of her, Duan Yusin couldn't help but sigh. Xiao Yao Palace is indeed worthy of its name. None of the aristocratic families and sects outside can be compared to Xiao Yao Palace. Zhou Lin looked around but didn't see anyone. She slowly walked to the square and said to Duan Yusin, There's no one here, and it doesn't look like there was a lightning strike. It's very strange. Is it strange? Duan Yusin looked around, and her gaze suddenly fell on a pile of charred things on the ground. She pointed at the pile of charred things and said to Zhou Lin, Lin, what do you think this is? Zhou Lin looked in the direction Duan Yusin was pointing at and frowned slightly. She said to Duan Yusin, This thing looks familiar to me. Familiar? Duan Yusin was stunned and asked, What's familiar about it? I don't know. Zhou Lin shook her head, but it does feel familiar. Then let's go and take a look. Duan Yusin lifted her feet and walked towards the charred things. She stood in front of the charred things and carefully sized them up. She was a little suspicious. Why did this thing look like a person? At this moment, Zhou Lin also walked over. After she carefully identified it, she said to Duan Yusin, It looks like a person to me, but it seems to be dead. Duan Yusin seemed to have thought of something and said in astonishment, Could it be that this guy triggered the thunder punishment prohibition of Xiao Yao Palace and was struck to death? After saying this, Duan Yusin's face couldn't help but become a little frightened. On the way up the mountain, she also thought of jumping and trying to see how fierce the thunder punishment prohibition was. However, she suppressed her curiosity and didn't try it in the end. Now, looking at this charred guy, she seemed to have seen the end result if she tried it. She couldn't help but shiver. Zhou also thought of this possibility. However, from what she knew, the thunder punishment prohibition of Xiao Yao Palace shouldn't be so strong. You said before that there was more than one lightning strike in Xiao Yao Palace, right? Zhou raised her eyebrows slightly and said, this guy should have triggered the thunder punishment prohibition more than once. That's why he was struck to death. Hearing Zhou words, Duan Yusin agreed with her guess and couldn't help but say, is he retarded? If he's not retarded, why would he do such a retarded thing? Zhou couldn't answer Duan Yusin's question because she had never met such an idiotic person. Forget it. There's no point in studying a retard. Duan Yusin stood up and looked around. She asked Zhou, what should we do next? Now that they had discovered the reason for the inexplicable thunder in Xiao Yao Palace, there was no need for them to do too much research on a brainless corpse. Let's go. Since we're already here, there's no hurry to leave. Zhou glanced at the charcoal on the ground and said to Duan Yusin, let's go take a look at other places. Duan Yusin had no objections. She followed behind Zhou and walked towards Xiao Yao Palace. Zhou followed the route in her memory and walked towards Xiao Yao residence. Soon, she saw the thatched cottage sitting quietly in the middle of the herb garden. Looking at the blue prohibition that enveloped Xiao Yao residence, Duan Yusin lamented to Zhou, there are so many rare treasures in this herb garden. How nice would it be if there wasn't a prohibition? Zhou subconsciously glanced at the herb garden when she heard that. There was a herb planted on every plot of land in the herb garden. She could recognize some of them, but she had never heard of some of them. A mountain rat grass that's at least 10,000 years old. It's almost turned into a real rat. Duan Yusin looked at the rat that was emitting a green glow. The 1,000-year-old mountain rat grass that Duan Yusin had seen at the auction was no different from a weed compared to this. Duan Yusin paid attention to the herbs in the herb garden, while Zhou paid attention to the thatched cottage in the middle of the garden. More accurately, she was paying attention to the stone table in front of the thatched cottage. On the stone table, there were 3 brocade boxes placed neatly. No one knew what was in the 3 brocade boxes, but everyone knew very well that anything that could be placed in Xiao Yao residence was no ordinary item. Unfortunately, the existence of the prohibition made it impossible for anyone to take a step forward. They could only look at the 3 brocade boxes enviously. Let's go. Zhou sighed and said to Duan Yusin, this prohibition is definitely not something that can be broken by a foundation establishment cultivator. Even a golden core cultivator may not be able to break it. That's right. It's so uncomfortable to be able to look at it, but not be able to take it. Duan Yusin looked helpless. It's more reliable to break Zijin Palace's prohibition. At the mention of Zijin Palace, Duan Yusin suddenly remembered what she had encountered previously. She turned to Zhou and said, I heard that someone is calling for everyone to go to Zijin Palace to discuss the matter of fighting against the demon clan. Have you heard? I've heard. I had intended to go to Zijin Palace to see if you were there. However, I met you before I could go there. Zhou knew more about this matter than Duan Yusin. The person who had called for everyone to go to Zijin Palace was Qin Haoshuan, Qin Chuan's blood-related older cousin. Because of her relationship with Qin Chuan, Zhou did not want to have any dealings with the Qin family. Should we go and take a look at the situation now? Duan Yusin looked at Zhou. If they really want to fight against the demon clan, we can also lend a hand. Even though Duan Yusin did not like those aristocratic families and sects, if the matter involved the demon clan, she could temporarily put aside her prejudices and cooperate with those people. There's no need. Zhou gently shook her head and said, you know that we're only cannon fodder to those people. There's no need for us to join in the fun. It's better for us to quietly search for treasures and opportunities. Once she had said her piece, Zhou turned around and prepared to leave. Duan Yusin followed her and turned around as well. However, at that moment, The prohibition that had enveloped carefree residents suddenly flickered and disappeared. However, the prohibition soon reappeared. Lin, am I seeing things? Duan Yusin stared at the prohibition outside carefree residence with her mouth agape. She then said to Zhou Lin, I just saw the prohibition disappear. Zhou Lin took a deep breath and said to Duan Yusin, if you were the only one who saw it, it might have been an illusion. However, I saw it too. It wasn't an illusion. The prohibition really did disappear for a moment. How could this be? Duan Yusin was a little agitated, but also a little puzzled. In the past, someone had kept watch over this place without rest. Even after the carefree secret realm closed, the prohibition did not disappear. I'm not sure either. Zhou Lin stared deeply at carefree residents and said, let's wait a little longer. Chapter 411. At the same time, when the restriction of the carefree residents disappeared, Charcoal, who was lying on the square of the carefree palace, suddenly trembled. Along with a series of cracking sounds, the charred outer shell cracked open, revealing the white and tender skin. Walla walla. After stretching for a while, the charred outer shell fell to the ground, and a tall and white body appeared on the square. It's not easy. Qin climbed up from the ground with a dumbfounded expression on his face. I was just quietly cultivating, but I was actually treated as a retard. I'm really wronged. Thinking of Duan Yusin and Zhou Lin's evaluation of him, Qin really didn't know what to say. He didn't expect to meet Zhou Lin under such circumstances. Moreover, Zhou Lin actually felt that he, who looked like charcoal, was very familiar. It could be said that it was not easy. After getting up and stretching his body, Qin couldn't help but show a satisfied expression on his face. Although the thunder punishment restriction spell almost killed him this time, it was a blessing after surviving a great disaster. His harvest was also very rich, and his strength had improved compared to before. After feeling it for a while, Qin took out a new set of clothes from the storage ring and changed into it. He looked up at the sky and hesitated for a while. In the end, he didn't jump up and try to activate the thunder punishment restriction spell again. If he was hit even harder, he might not be able to withstand it. Let's go and see senior sister. After not seeing Zhou Lin for a long time, Qin still missed Zhou Lin very much. The 7-colored glazed mansion was named because it had 7 colors. As a training ground of Carefree Palace, the 7-colored glazed mansion was full of opportunities. As long as it was your first time entering the Carefree Secret Realm, you could challenge the 7-colored glazed mansion. As long as you passed the challenge, you could get a random reward. This random reward could be a cultivation method, a magic weapon, or an ancient medicinal pill. It was extremely rich and endless. After so many years, the 7-colored glazed mansion had not been emptied and had always been the most popular place in the unfettered secret realm. This was also the reason why the Demon Clan occupied the 7-colored glazed mansion immediately after entering the unfettered secret realm. The Rainbow Glazed Manor's trial challenges were divided into 2 types. The first was the ordinary trial. Anyone could participate in this trial. Even if they failed, they wouldn't suffer any losses. The only downside was that they wouldn't be allowed to participate again for 7 days. The second trial was the famous Glazed Pagoda. The Glazed Pagoda was located in the center of the 7-colored glazed mansion, and it was undoubtedly the center. The Glazed Pagoda had a total of 9 floors, and it was divided into 9 stages of trials. Every time one passed a trial, they would receive a random reward. Once they failed the trial, they would trigger the restrictions of the Glazed Pagoda and be killed instantly. That's right, it was so powerful that they couldn't fight back at all. Although the consequences of failing the trial were extremely miserable, the rewards for succeeding the trial were also extremely rich. There was once a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator who passed the first trial of the Glazed Pagoda and received a top-grade magic weapon as a reward. He even used this magic weapon to kill everyone in the secret realm, snatching many treasures and opportunities and making a name for himself. However, such people were very rare. Most of the challengers died in the Glazed Pagoda. Until today, There were a few people who passed the first trial, but no one could pass the second trial. Chow Rong, are you sure you want to challenge the glazed pagoda? Be careful not to die in there. A tall, aquiline-nosed youth with two golden wings folded behind his back looked at the golden-haired youth in front of him with disdain, as if he didn't believe that the other party had the strength to pass the first trial of the glazed pagoda. Chow Rong sneered, "Faping, you'd better take care of yourself first. Can't the two of you sit down and talk calmly?" Dressed in white, the holy son of the hunting eagle tribe, Bai Feng, looked at the two of them helplessly. "I've said many times, we have to work together and not have internal strife. All right, Bai Feng, don't be a good person. Let them fight. It's best if they fight." The short holy son of the great sage tribe, Sun Yu, chuckled. "When they're all dead, no one will compete with me for the position of prince consort of the heavenly horse tribe." Ma Juan, the beautiful saintess of the heavenly horse tribe, who was dressed in white and had white hair, chuckled when she heard Sun Yu's words. She said faintly, "My future husband must be a man of indomitable spirit. Sun Yu, your height is a big problem. Pui, don't look down on people. When I, old son, transform into the great sage, true body, I'm taller than this glazed pagoda." Sun Yu was a little embarrassed. He hated it when people said that he was short. "Can you all be quiet for a while?" Not far away, the holy son of the great snake tribe, Snake Dowager, who was sitting on the ground and resting quietly, raised his eyelids slightly and looked at the crowd with some displeasure. He really hated these chattering people and wanted to swallow them all into his stomach. "Let's talk about something serious." Bai Feng, the peacemaker, stood up again and said to the crowd, "You've heard, right? There's movement on the side of the human race. They seem to be heading towards Xiao Yao Palace in a group. Then let them go." Fei Peng snorted coldly. "They're just a motley crew, nothing to worry about. I don't know how many people have been to Xiao Yao Palace. There isn't anything good there. There should be a reason why those humans gathered together and headed to Xiao Yao Palace." Ma Jiawen frowned and pondered. She felt that this matter wasn't simple. Compared to this, I'm more curious about where that Qin Chuan is. Could he be a member of that motley crew? Chow Rong glanced at the crowd. "You haven't forgotten Princess Rao's order, right? If she finds out that we've been staying in the seven-colored glazed mansion without going anywhere, I'm afraid she'll give us a good scolding." "Humph. Are you so afraid of Princess Rao?" Fei Peng snorted coldly and looked at Chow Rong with disdain. "What aren't you afraid?" Chow Rong raised his eyebrows. "If you dare to say anything bad about Princess Rao to her face, I'll take a detour when I see you in the future. Do you dare?" Fei Peng sneered. He didn't fall for Chow Rong's provocation. He might as well kill him directly rather than say anything bad about Princess Rao to her face. "What are you all doing here? What are you talking about so happily? Tell me, and let me have some fun." At this moment, a coquettish voice rang in everyone's ears. Hearing this familiar voice, the scene immediately quieted down. Even the Snake Dowager, who was sitting on the ground, jumped up and stood properly. Her eyes were filled with reverence as she looked at the figure of a young girl slowly walking over. "This subordinate greets Princess Rao." Chapter 412. This subordinate greets Princess Rao. While everyone was paying their respects in unison, a young girl in a bright red dress slowly walked over. She stood in front of everyone and said indifferently, "I heard that you guys have been staying in the seven-colored glazed mansion for the past few days. Is that true?" "Princess Rao, we didn't dare to act without your presence." Snake Dowager, who had been the most impatient with the crowd, was now the most obedient to Princess Rao. If they didn't know Snake Dowager's identity, they would have thought he was Princess Rao's servant. However, no one dared to mock the Snake Dowager. This was because they knew that the reason why the Snake Dowager was so friendly and respectful towards Princess Rao was because she had suffered a great loss in the hands of Princess Rao. No one knew what exactly happened, but they could tell from the Snake Dowager's behavior that Princess Rao had left a great shadow in her heart. "You don't dare to act on your own, or are you too lazy to act?" Princess Rao sneered. "Let me ask you, I asked you to hunt down Qin Chuan. Have you done anything?" No. The one who spoke was still Snake Dowager. Princess Rao narrowed her eyes and said in a low voice, "In other words, you haven't done anything during this period of time?" Before she finished speaking, an extremely terrifying aura shrouded the crowd, causing their expressions to change subtly. Fei Peng looked at Princess Rao in surprise. It had only been a few days since they last met, but Princess Rao's aura had become even stronger than before she entered the unfettered secret territory. "Princess Rao, we caught some humans and collected Qinchuan's portrait from them." Ma Jiaowen handed a portrait to Princess Rao with both hands. "This is the portrait we gathered after summarizing and integrating it. Please take a look." Hearing this, Princess Rao took the portrait and opened it. When she saw the face of the person in the portrait, her eyes were filled with surprise and joy. "It's actually you. It really didn't take much effort to get you." Hearing Princess Rao's words, Ma Jiaowen couldn't help but feel puzzled. Could it be that Princess Rao had already met Qinchuan? Otherwise, why would she say such words? Princess Rao ignored Ma Jiaowen's puzzlement and asked directly, "Do you know where this little thief is now?" "I don't know." Ma Jiaowen shook her head and said, "But a large army of the human race is marching towards Xiaoyao Palace. We suspect that Qinchuan might be hiding among the large army of the human race." Hearing this, Princess Rao waved her hand and said, "Then what are we waiting for? Pass down the order. Gather all the generals. We will go and find those humans." Looking at the people rushing into action, Princess Rao once again looked at the portrait in her hand. Her lips curled up slightly as she muttered, "Little thief, so you are Qinchuan. This time, let's see where you can run to." Half a day's journey away from Xiaoyao Palace, nearly 500 human Foundation establishment cultivators had gathered together. They were mighty and imposing. In front of the crowd, Qin Haoshuan was in high spirits. He looked back at the crowd behind him and couldn't help but feel proud. He thought to himself, so what if the 6 great academies lost in the ranking competition? So what if Qinchuan is the champion? As long as I am Qin Haoshuan, I will be the leader of the younger generation. Just as Qin Haoshuan was feeling proud, a figure was rushing towards him from not far away. It was the scout that Qin Haoshuan had arranged near the 7-colored glaze mansion. He was responsible for keeping an eye on the movements of the demon race. Seeing this person coming, Qin Haoshuan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. Could it be that the demon race had taken action so quickly? "Young Master Qin, there are movements from the demon race." The scout quickly ran to Qin Haoshuan's side and said loudly, "The demon race has gathered and is heading towards Xiaoyao Palace." "What?" Qin Haoshuan was surprised when he heard this. "How can they be so fast?" "Are you sure?" "I have been tracking them, and I am sure that they are heading towards Xiaoyao Palace." The scout continued, "And they're going all out." After hearing the scout's words, Qin Haoshuan's expression became completely gloomy. Not only did the demon race move faster than he had expected, they even came out in full force. This was something that he had not expected at all. Why would the demon race suddenly go all out? Yi Qingning was puzzled. "Our news hasn't been released yet, right?" Qin Haoshuan wasn't the only one who felt that things had developed unexpectedly. Yi Qingning also felt the same way. In her expectation, the demon race would pay attention to them silently and take action after hearing the news about the key. However, she didn't expect that the demon race would go all out, which was almost the opposite of their plan. Shimin Bei pondered for a moment and said with a frown, "Could it be that the demon race has also heard the news that Qinchuan is in Xiaoyao Palace and they are going after Qinchuan? Do you think it is worth it for the demon race to go all out for a mere Qinchuan?" Qin Haoshuan sneered. "I think the demon race is coming for us. It is more likely that they want to annihilate us." Hearing this, Su Kuang narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, "I am looking forward to fighting with the holy sons of the demon race. I don't think it will be too boring." For someone like Su Kuang, treasure hunting was secondary. The most important thing was whether he could meet interesting opponents. At this moment, another person flew over from afar. He was also a scout that Qin Haoshuan had placed in the demon race. Judging from his expression, he seemed to be frightened. Young Master Qin, this is not good. The demon race changed their direction halfway and is going straight for us. Hearing the panicked shout of the scout, the expressions of Qin Haoshuan and the others changed. The people following behind them were also shocked. They had clearly agreed to wait until the ambush was set up before luring the demon race over. Why did the demon race attack before they even reached the vicinity of Xiao Yao Palace? What the hell is going on? Qin Haoshuan's face was gloomy. He grabbed the scout's collar. Why would the demon race do such a thing? I don't know either. The scout shook his head and said in a panic, I was secretly following the demon race army. When I saw them suddenly change their direction, I came back to report. Yi Qingning frowned slightly and said to Qin Haoshuan, the demon race should not be so impatient. What caused them to suddenly make such a big move? And their target is us. Could it be that they want to start a war with us now? In the past, although the demon race would attack the human race, they would usually wait until the human race had a certain harvest in the Xiao Yao secret land. Basically, they would wait for a month before taking action. Based on their previous experience, they felt that the demon race would not attack them at this time. However, this time, the demon race did not act according to common sense. They directly chose to attack and completely disrupted their plan. Chapter 4:13. This is very strange. Something is very wrong. Shiminbei looked at everyone with a dignified expression and said in a deep voice, the demon race has no reason to start a war with us at this stage. This won't do them any good. We all know what you said, but the problem now is that the demon race has already arrived. Qin Haoshuan said with a gloomy face, if they didn't come to fight with us, could it be that they are here to greet us? No one would be stupid enough to think that the demon race's army had gathered here just to meet them. Obviously, the demon race was here to annihilate them. We have quite a number of people. If we start to set up traps here and defend, the demon race may not be able to take advantage of us. Yi Qingning looked around and said to Qin Haoshuan, this terrain is too open. We need to find a suitable place to set up an ambush. Now, Yi Qingning didn't think about other problems. She had to get through this difficult situation first. Shiminbei frowned and looked behind him. He said to everyone, don't worry about the ambush. The most important thing now is how to boost the morale. Look at these people, they're already scared out of their wits. Hearing Shiminbei's words, everyone subconsciously turned their heads and looked at the huge crowd behind them. Previously, when the scouts reported the information, they didn't cover their voices. Therefore, many people heard the news that the demon race's army was coming. It was no exaggeration to say that most of the people's faces were full of fear and panic. It could be said that their morale was extremely low. Looking at the scene in front of him, Qin Haoshuan couldn't help but snort. What a motley crew! Su Kuang pursed his lips and said, it seems that it is absolutely impossible to confront the demon race head-on. The ambush may not be effective. Why don't we let them scatter and escape? Scatter? I'm afraid that we will be defeated one by one. Shiminbei shook his head and said, if we gather together, there's a possibility that we can fight against the demon race's army. Once we scatter, who can resist the demon race's army? Then tell me, what can we do to make these people muster up the courage to face the demon race? Qin Haoshuan's face was gloomy. He already knew that these people were unreliable. However, there was no one around him, so he could only use these people. Originally, in his plan, the demon race wouldn't take action so early. He could calmly make arrangements and didn't have to worry about the people's hearts. But now, the demon race's problem. Shiminbei, but facing a group of people who hadn't experienced. Come. Yi Qingning frowned. She said to everyone, the demon race will arrive here in 2 hours. If we want to find a suitable place to ambush them, we have to act quickly. If we delay any longer, it will be too late. Now, we have 2 choices in front of us. Either we return to Zijin Palace and defend, or we find a place to ambush them. Shiminbei looked at Qin Haoshuan. We came here because we listened to you. Now, what do you think we should do? Of course we fight. Qin Haoshuan took a deep breath and said, "But I'm going to change the original battle plan." "You have a new idea?" Su Kuang raised his eyebrows. How come he didn't see that Qin Haoshuan had so many ideas? Qin Haoshuan looked at Shimin Bei and said, "This time, I need Brother Shimin to cooperate with me." Xiao Yao Palace, colorful glazed mansion, and Zijin Palace were located in a triangular formation on the plains in the center of Xiao Yao's secret realm. The three places were not far from each other. Therefore, no matter which side made a move, the other side would quickly get the news. Just when Qin Haoshuan led everyone to find a suitable geographical location to set up an ambush, the demon race also received the news. "The humans want to ambush us? They are too naive," Sun Yu sneered. Lei Gong's face was full of disdain. "They only have 500 people. Even if they have the geographical advantage, they can't do anything. It's better to be careful." Bai Feng looked ahead vigilantly and said to Sun Yu, "It's not like we haven't failed miserably in the past. I don't want to be overturned." "You're just too cowardly," Sun Yu snorted. "In the face of absolute power, all schemes and tricks are just fancy ways to court death." "Well, shut up." Snake Dowager glanced at the two people. "Don't disturb Princess Rest." Hearing the words of Snake Dowager, Sun Yu and Bai Feng subconsciously looked towards a huge red feather flying in the sky. At this time, Yaora was lying on this feather. Compared to them who were running on the ground, she was much more comfortable. Demon Race wasn't good at making magic weapons. Most of their magic weapons were refined from their body parts, such as feathers, claws, or teeth. The red feather that Yaorao was riding at this time was refined from the feather of Yaorao's body. It had the effect of flying in the sky. "I, old son, also want a flying magic weapon." Sun Yu looked at that feather with some envy. For them, the land races, if they wanted to fly in the sky, it basically had to wait until they advanced to Demon General. They were not like Bai Feng, who could transform into his body and fly in the sky. Bai Feng took a glance at Fei Peng and Ma Jiaowen flying in the sky, then said to Sun Yu, "Actually, flying in the sky is not interesting. It feels better to have one's feet on the ground." Report. At this time, a white eagle flew over from the sky and said to Fei Peng, who was flying at the front of the group, "Holy Son Fei Peng, there is news from the side of human race. They have already made arrangements. They are in a hilly area 10,000 meters away from here." Hilly area? It should be Xiaozhong Mountain. Fei Peng recalled the map and knew where that hilly area was. "It is precisely Xiaozhong Mountain." The scout replied. The name of Xiaozhong Mountain was given by them demon race. As for how human race called that place, he didn't know. At this time, Bai Feng had also arrived in the sky. After hearing the report, he said to Fei Peng, "The terrain of Xiaozhong Mountain is indeed complicated. What are you going to do?" "It's simple. Your White Eagle tribe and our Sky Rock tribe will search for traces of the human race in the sky and attack them. The ground troops will surround the Little Zhong Mountain and won't let a single human escape. Just treat it as a hunting ground." Fei Peng laughed nastily and said, "I want to let these humans know what it means to be a turtle in a jar." Chapter 414. The area around Xiaozhong Mountain that Qin Haoshuan had chosen to ambush the demon race had a complicated terrain. It could be used for both offense and defense. It could be said that it was a perfect location for a battle. If there was something lacking in it, it would probably be the human heart. Qin Haoshuan stood on the top of the mountain and looked at those people who were still unable to overcome the panic in their hearts. His expression was extremely ugly. Don't expect these people to fight. It would already be good if they didn't turn around and run away when they saw the demon race. Now I suddenly understand the seniors who entered the unfettered secret realm. Maybe they also organized resistance activities, but in the end, they were defeated by the people's hearts and by themselves. Looking at the performance of these people, it wasn't difficult for Yi Qingning to imagine that if the battle went smoothly, it would be fine. But once the situation was unfavorable, these people would inevitably lose their fighting spirit, which would disturb the morale of the army. At that time, there would probably be a large number of people running away. Shimin Bei wasn't surprised by the performance of these people. After all, they were all cultivators and not soldiers who had received formal training. It was understandable that they would panic when encountering a large-scale battle. Su Kuang coldly snorted and said to Qin Haoshuan, "Instead of leading these motley crew, we might as well gather some elites. This way, even if we can't win, at least there won't be any accidents when we retreat." Hearing Su Kuang's words, Qin Haoshuan couldn't help but hesitate. Indeed, as Su Kuang said, leading such a large group of people who had no fighting spirit to ambush the demon race was no different from delivering their lives. It would be better to simply let these people run away. Maybe they could also distract the attention of the demon race. Let's do as Su Kuang said. Yi Qingning also agreed with Su Kuang's proposal. If we gather the elites of our family, it will be enough to deal with the demon race. Facing the proposal of Su Kuang and Yi Qingning, Qin Haoshuan shook his head and said, "I still insist on carrying out the previous plan. Focus on Shimin Bei." After hearing Qin Haoshuan's words, Yi Qingning and Su Kuang subconsciously looked toward Shimin Bei. Shimin Bei's complexion also became somewhat subtle. Qin Haoshuan was stubbornly clinging to his own way. If they insisted on following his own way, it would cause a lot of unnecessary trouble once a conflict arose. Someone had to make a concession. "Shimin Bei, you go." Qin Haoshuan took a deep look at Shimin Bei and said, "All of our hopes are pinned on you." When Shimin Bei heard this, he looked at Qin Haoshuan meaningfully and said, "Are you sure you could succeed? If he refuses, you know what awaits you." If he can be so heartless as to disregard the lives of more than 500 of us, then I have nothing to say. Qin Haoshuan smiled faintly. "I don't think he is such a heartless person." Shimin Bei didn't say anything more. He directly turned around and left. Yi Qingning watched as Shimin Bei's figure gradually disappeared. Then, she turned her head and looked at Qin Haoshuan. With a slightly complicated expression on her face, she said in a low voice, "We are very clear about what kind of trick you are playing. Originally, I thought that you had already let go of everything in the past and started anew. I didn't expect that everything was just an illusion." "I don't understand what you're talking about." Qin Haoshuan glanced at Yi Qingning. "Do you have a better idea? At least, I won't involve unrelated people." Yi Qingning turned around and looked in the direction of Xiaoyao Palace. She said in a low voice, "You are forcing him to stand out and attract the attention of a monster clan for us. You know better than anyone whether you are harming people or saving people. Don't forget that he came here on behalf of your Qin clan. He is working for your Qin clan." "Thank you for reminding me." Qin Haoshuan sneered. "You almost made me think that you have taken a fancy to him. I don't need you to tell me who Yi Qingning like." Yi Qingning walked in another direction. She didn't want to stand together with Qin Haoshuan. Su Kuang looked at Qin Haoshuan and Yi Qingning who were arguing. In the end, he fixed his gaze on Qin Haoshuan and sighed, "What a pity. What's a pity?" Qin Haoshuan turned around and looked at Su Kuang with an unfriendly gaze. "In the past, I thought that you were a very good opponent. I have always regarded you as my strongest opponent. Now, it seems that I have misjudged you." Su Kuang looked at Qin Haoshuan calmly and said, "Now, you are just a loser. You are an unscrupulous villain." After saying these words, Su Kuang didn't wait for Qin Haoshuan to refute. He turned around and left. He didn't want to waste his breath on Qin Haoshuan. When Qin Haoshuan saw that Su Kuang and Yi Qingning were looking down on him, his expression couldn't help but become gloomy. He couldn't help but shout angrily, "Only the living are qualified to stand at the peak. This time, I will let all of you know who is truly worthy of being called the strongest. Report, there is a new movement in the direction of the human clan." Shimin Bei of the Shimin clan left the main group and went straight to Xiaoyao Palace. "Shimin Bei?" Fei Peng looked at Bai Feng and said, "I seem to have some impression of this person. I also have some impression of him. He seems to have fought with Chao Rong on the battlefield." Bai Feng lowered his head and looked at Chao Rong, who was running wildly on the ground. He shouted, "Chao Rong, do you still remember Shimin Bei?" When Chao Rong heard the shout of Bai Feng, she didn't turn her head and replied, "He is merely a defeated opponent. Nothing to worry about." Hearing the answer of Chao Rong, Bai Feng said to Fei Peng. Since that person is not the opponent of Chao Rong, then we don't need to pay too much attention to him. Let him escape. Our target is the army of human clan, not one or two wandering ghosts. Who? A burst of fragrant wind blew, and soft and clean white feather appeared in front of Fei Peng and Bai Feng. Yao Rao was lying on the feather with a lazy expression. She looked at them and asked, "Did you find out whether Qin Chuan is among the army of human clan?" Hearing the question of Yao Rao, Bai Feng immediately replied, "Princess Rao, there are too many human clan members, and they also hid in the region of Little Zhong Mountain. It is very difficult for our scouts to see everyone clearly, so we didn't find any trace of Qin Chuan. So, what do you think is the possibility that Qin Chuan is in Little Zhong Mountain?" Yao Rao yawned. "I don't like to waste time on meaningless people. This, I also don't dare to be sure." Bai Feng hesitated for a moment, then said to Yao Rao, "I think at least 50% possibility." 50%? Yao Rao looked at Bai Feng with subtle expression. "If Qin Chuan is in Little Zhong Mountain, then I will reward you with a treasure. If he is not, then I will pluck off all the feathers on your wings." Bai Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Encountering such an unreasonable person, he really didn't know what to do. Chapter 415. Xiao Yao Palace. Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin stood in front of Carefree House. They stared at the restriction in front of them, waiting for it to disappear again. However, even after staring until their eyes were sore, there was still no movement from the restriction. It didn't look like it was going to disappear again. Lin, is it possible that this restriction will only disappear once in a while? Duan Yusin couldn't help but ask Zhou Lin, will it disappear after a long time, or even the next time the Xiao Yao secret area opens? I'm not sure. Zhou Lin shook her head. This is the first time I've encountered such a situation. It's hard to say. Duan Yusin looked at the restrictive barrier in front of her and wanted to try touching it. However, she was worried that she would be killed immediately. After hesitating for a moment, she looked at Zhou Lin and asked, "Then, should we continue to wait?" Faced with Duan Yusin's question, Zhou Lin didn't know how to answer. If they continued to wait and didn't get any results, all their time would be wasted. However, if they left and the restrictive barrier disappeared again, it would be a great loss. Therefore, Zhou Lin was also very conflicted about whether they should continue to wait or leave. Just as Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin were struggling with this question, an extremely dignified voice suddenly rang out in Xiao Yao Palace. "Who dares to break into my Xiao Yao Palace and disturb my 10,000 years of cultivation?" Hearing this voice, Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin's expressions changed abruptly. They subconsciously looked around but didn't see anyone else. Lin, am I hallucinating?" Duan Yusin looked around in horror. "Did you hear someone speak?" "I heard it." Zhou Lin nodded and looked around with a serious expression. She said in a deep voice, "Who's playing tricks? Come out." "Playing tricks? I'm a god. Why should I pretend to be one?" Hearing this, Zhou Lin looked at the stone pillar on the left. Her eyes were extremely sharp as she said coldly, "Come out. I've found you." When Duan Yusin heard Zhou Lin's words, she turned to look at the stone pillar. From Zhou Lin's reaction, she understood that there was no such thing as a god. It was someone else who was playing tricks on them. When she understood this, she couldn't help but curse, "Bastard, come out if you dare. I'll beat you to death." "Ahem, I was just joking. Don't be so agitated." The person hiding behind the stone pillar coughed softly and walked out slowly. He waved at Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin with an awkward smile. Seeing the figure walk out from behind the stone pillar, Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin's faces couldn't help but reveal a mixture of astonishment and surprise. They said in unison, "Qin Chuan." That's right, the guy who was pretending to be an expert behind the stone pillar was Qin Chuan. "Senior, Big Sister XN, long time no see." Qin Chuan grinned and said to Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin, "It's been a long time since we last met. I missed you guys." "Qin Chuan." Duan Yusin pointed at Qin Chuan and shouted, "You dare to scare us." At this moment, Zhou Lin seemed to have thought of something. She looked at Qin Chuan in surprise and said, "So the charcoal lying on the ground is you." When Duan Yusin heard Zhou Lin's words, she was also shocked. She said in surprise, "That retard is Qin Chuan?" Qin Chuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at Duan Yusin and said, "I'm not a retard. I'm just cultivating." After saying that, Qin Chuan turned his gaze to Zhou Lin and asked, "Senior, how did you connect me with the charcoal? Previously, when I saw the charcoal, I felt that it was somewhat familiar. However, I couldn't figure out what was so familiar about it. I also didn't associate it with you. Now that I saw you suddenly appear, I immediately connected the familiar feeling on the charcoal with you. That's why I guessed that it was you." Zhou Lin looked at Qin Chuan with a subtle expression and said, "Your talent rune is of the thunder attribute. The prohibition of Xiao Yao Palace is also a thunder punishment. You must have been cultivating with the help of the thunder punishment. That's why you ended up like that." "Yes." Qin Chuan smiled bitterly. He nodded and said, "In the beginning, the power of the thunder punishment prohibition wasn't particularly strong. Later on, it became stronger and stronger. I didn't have a good grasp of the rhythm and ended up like that. When you saw me, I was at the critical stage of my cultivation and couldn't move. I only recovered just now." "Wow, Qin Chuan, your skin is too good." Duan Yusin seemed to have discovered something new. She looked at the skin on Qin Chuan's arm with a surprised expression. She couldn't help but stretch out her hand and touch it. She sighed and said, "This is too white and tender. Could it be that being struck by the thunder punishment has such benefits?" "You can give it a try." Qin Chuan chuckled. "As long as you don't die, there will be good fortune in the future. I think it's better to forget it." Duan Yusin shook her head. "I'm not a retard." "Qin Chuan, speaking of which, the two of you couldn't have been waiting for the restriction to disappear by itself, right?" Qin Chuan smiled and glanced at the restriction outside the carefree residence. He said to Zhou Lin, "That's impossible." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin exchanged glances before looking at Qin Chuan. Zhou Lin said, "Actually, the restriction disappeared just now. Although it was only for a short moment, I'm certain that the restriction really did disappear." Qin Chuan couldn't help but reveal a look of astonishment when he heard this. "Are you too sure you're not joking with me? How did the restriction disappear?" As he spoke, Qin Chuan walked towards the restriction of the carefree residence, wanting to take a closer look at it. However, just as Qin Chuan approached the restriction, it suddenly flickered. Seeing the restriction flicker, Qin Chuan and the other two were somewhat dumbfounded. After a while, Qin Chuan seemed to have thought of something and slowly retreated. When Qin Chuan was far away from the restriction, it stopped flickering and returned to normal. Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin couldn't help but gasp at this scene. Could it be that the disappearance of the restriction just now had something to do with Qin Chuan? Qin Chuan looked back at Zhou Lin and then took another step forward. When the restriction flickered again, Qin Chuan grinned and said, "If I say I didn't do anything, would you believe me?" The restriction of the carefree residence that no one had been able to break through for nearly 10,000 years actually flickered and disappeared because of his arrival. Who would believe this? Gulp. Duan Yusin couldn't help but swallow her saliva. She poked Zhou Lin with her finger and whispered, "Qin Chuan can affect the restriction. Does this mean that we can enter the carefree residence?" Upon hearing Duan Yusin's words, Zhou Lin subconsciously looked at the stone table in front of the thatched cottage in carefree residence. Was the brocade box that no one had been able to open for nearly 10,000 years finally going to be unlocked? Chapter 416. I can't. Qin Chuan shook his head rationally. He was almost on top of the restriction, but it was still flickering and had no intention of disappearing. Under such circumstances, if they acted rashly, they might die a horrible death. Hearing Qin Chuan say no, Duan Yusin calmed down. She glanced at Qin Chuan, who was already in front of the restriction, and asked, "Is this the limit?" Qin Chuan smiled bitterly and turned to Duan Yusin. "Sister Exen, if I take another step forward, I'll be obliterated by the restriction." Zhou Lin glanced at Qin Chuan with a subtle expression and said, You can make the restriction of the carefree residence flicker, but you can't make it disappear. Why is that? In all these years, I've never heard of this happening to anyone. This is also the first time I've heard of it. It's really amazing. Duan Yusin looked at Qin Xuan in confusion. She seemed to have thought of something and asked, could it be related to Qin Xuan being struck by the lightning punishment before? That can't be right. Zhou Lin shook her head gently and said, it's not like no one has ever been struck by the lightning punishment before, but this has never happened before. Duan Yusin felt that Zhou Lin's words made sense. In the past, many people had rashly triggered the lightning punishment, but they had never caused the restriction to fluctuate. This was the first time Qin Xuan's situation had been seen and heard of. Could it really be an exception? Just as Duan Yusin and Zhou Lin were thinking about what the key problem was, Qin Xuan coughed softly and said to the two of them, maybe it's because I've been struck too many times? Hearing Qin Xuan's words, Zhou Lin was slightly stunned. She seemed to have thought of something, and her eyes flashed. She said softly, in the past, when people triggered the lightning punishment, it only flashed and disappeared. However, the lightning punishment that Yusin and I saw was extremely spectacular. How'd you do it? Duan Yusin also looked at Qin Xuan with a curious gaze. She didn't think too much about it before, but now it seemed that Qin Xuan's lightning punishment was different from the ones that others had triggered before. Qin Xuan scratched his head awkwardly and explained, there's nothing special about it. It's just that the more times I trigger it, the stronger the power of the thunder punishment becomes. When I turned into charcoal, it was the 9th time I triggered the thunder punishment. 9th. Hearing Qin Xuan's answer, Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin were dumbfounded. Triggering the lightning punishment 9 times in a row? Was this something that a human could do? Looking at Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin's dumbfounded expressions, Qin Xuan said embarrassedly, I know this sounds a little ridiculous, but I really triggered the lightning punishment 9 times. Let me digest it first. Zhou Lin held her forehead with her hand and said softly, as far as I know, there was once a body refining cultivator who had completed the foundation establishment realm who tried to trigger the lightning punishment. However, he was directly turned into ashes on the 3rd try. Zhou Lin really didn't know what to say about Qin Xuan. Was he confident or was he not afraid of death? Duan Yusin looked at Qin Xuan as if she was looking at a monster and asked, are you really Qin Xuan? Could it be that you've been possessed by some old monster from Xiaoyao Palace? Qin Xuan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Sister Xian, your imagination is too rich. Then how did you withstand the power of the lightning punishment and not die? Duan Yusin was very puzzled. Even if you have a lightning attribute talent rune, it shouldn't be so abnormal. It's a long story. Maybe it has something to do with my cultivation method. Qin Xuan explained simply. My cultivation method allows me to devour the lightning punishment as much as possible. Therefore, the lightning punishment's lethality towards me is limited. Hearing Qin Xuan's words, Duan Yusin's eyes moved slightly. Then, she pointed at the restriction behind Qin Xuan. This restriction will also trigger the lightning punishment, but the power is stronger. I just don't know if it's stronger or weaker than the 9th lightning punishment you experienced before. If it's weaker, Qin Xuan raised his eyebrows slightly. He wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Zhou Lin. You can't do that. It's too risky. It's too dangerous. Zhou Lin's attitude was very firm. She would never agree to Qin Xuan doing such a risky thing. Once there was an accident, his soul would be destroyed. Senior sister, I won't act recklessly. Seeing that Zhou Lin was so concerned about him, Qin Xuan felt warm in his heart. He smiled slightly and said to Zhou Lin, I suspect that the lightning punishment restriction of Xiaoyao Palace should be a cycle. It won't be strengthened without limit. Therefore, I want to try again and see if the 10th lightning punishment will cause me great harm. Zhou Lin shook her head again. It's too dangerous. I saw your situation just now. You were only 1 step away from being struck to death. But after that, I became even stronger. Qin Xuan looked at Zhou Lin with a serious expression. Let's do it one more time. If I really get into an accident, you guys can save me in time. Moreover, if the lightning punishment force goes through a new cycle, It means that the ninth lightning punishment force is the limit of this restriction. Qin Chuan turned his head and looked at Xiao Yao residents behind him. He pursed his lips and said, "Maybe I can really pass through this restriction." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Zhou Lin couldn't help but become silent. Although Qin Chuan's attempt was extremely risky, once they verified that Qin Chuan's speculation was correct, their harvest would be extremely rich, not to mention the medicinal herbs in the garden that were over 10,000 years old. Just the 3 brocade boxes on the stone table were enough to make people tempted. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Zhou Lin looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated expression. "If you fail, you might die." Qin Chuan nodded solemnly and said, "I must try." "Okay, if you have an accident, I will try my best to save you." Zhou Lin looked deeply at Qin Chuan. "If you die, I will take care of you for you." Qin Chuan nodded when he suddenly thought of something. He looked at Zhou Lin with a strange expression and asked, "Senior sister, why do you want to take care of you for me?" Duan Yusin couldn't help but roll her eyes when she heard this. The words of this senior sister and junior brother were too funny. Just as Zhou Lin was about to explain, a call suddenly came from not far away. "Qin Chuan, where are you?" Hearing this familiar voice, Qin Chuan was a little surprised and puzzled. "Is it Shimin Bei? How did he know I was here?" "I don't know for the time being. Let's see how it goes." Zhou Lin looked at Qin Chuan and said, "Remember to keep it a secret." Qin Chuan nodded his head. Although he believed in Shimin Bei's character, money could move people's hearts. No one knew if Shimin Bei would do something crazy for such a huge benefit. It was better to be careful. Chapter 417. "Qin Chuan, where are you?" Shimin Bei shouted loudly. He also didn't know whether Qin Chuan was still in Xiao Yao Palace or not, but he still wanted to try his luck. "I'm over here." Suddenly, a burst of shouts resounded in Shimin Bei's ears. Hearing this familiar voice, Shimin Bei's face immediately revealed a touch of excitement, and he walked towards the direction of the voice. When he saw Qin Chuan and other 2 people standing in front of Xiao Yao Palace, Shimin Bei was somewhat surprised. He didn't expect that besides Qin Chuan, Zhou Lin and Duan Yusin would also be here. "Shimin, how did you know I was here?" Qin Chuan looked at Shimin Bei curiously and asked, "Could it be that you were following me?" Shimin Bei shook his head and said to Qin Chuan, "Now is not the time to talk about this. We need your help." Looking at the serious expression on Shimin Bei's face, Qin Chuan gently raised his eyebrows and said, "We? Who else? Speak slowly and make it clear." Shimin Bei didn't dawdle and directly said to Qin Chuan, "We encountered the demon army, and now we need you to help us solve this crisis." After hearing the simple narration of the matter from Shimin Bei, Qin Chuan's face couldn't help but reveal a touch of subtle expression. He looked at Shimin Bei and asked, "Was it Qin Haoshuan who organized you, and it was also him who asked you to find me?" Shimin Bei nodded his head and said to Qin Chuan, "When the demon army entered Xiao Yao's secret territory, they issued a warrant for your arrest everywhere. If you appear, and with this key, the demon army will definitely pay attention to you. Then we can carry out our plan." While speaking, Shimin Bei handed over the brocade box containing the fake key to Qin Chuan, hoping that Qin Chuan would take it. However, Zhou Lin took a step forward and stood between him and Qin Chuan. "Are you kidding me?" Zhou Lin looked at Shimin Bei indifferently. "Why should Qin Chuan save you? You more than 500 people don't think of a way to save yourselves, but instead hope that Qin Chuan will sacrifice himself to save you. Don't you think it's too ridiculous? This is not saving us, but we can use this opportunity to inflict heavy losses on the demon army." Shimin Bei anxiously explained, "I never meant to frame Qin Chuan. I just don't want to see the demon army being too arrogant and always bullying us humans. So, you can also be the bait. I believe that this key alone is enough to attract the demon army." Zhou Lin didn't give in. "As for those principles you said, I don't care." Seeing Zhou Lin's attitude, Shimin Bei couldn't help but look at Qin Chuan and said to Qin Chuan, "Qin Chuan, I have fought against the demon army many times on the battlefield, and you have also fought against the demon army. I think you must have experienced the pain and helplessness of seeing your comrades die beside you. If we can inflict heavy losses on the demon army this time, the demon army will definitely suffer a great loss after losing these young geniuses. Then, in the next 30 years, we humans will have a chance to fight back on the battlefield. Looking at the sincere expression on Shimin Bei's face, Qin couldn't help but let out a long sigh. He knew that Shimin Bei didn't have any ulterior motives and was completely considering the overall situation and the entire human army. If Qin Haoshuan wasn't involved, he might have agreed to take a risk for Shimin Bei, but with Qin Haoshuan, he didn't dare. That's right, he didn't dare. When Qin Chuan saw Qin Haoshuan for the first time, he sensed a dangerous aura, but he didn't know where this dangerous aura came from. Now, he finally understood that this dangerous aura came from the demon army. Qin Haoshuan wanted to use the demon army to eliminate him. If he really agreed to Shimin Bei's request and used himself as the bait to lure the demon army, once the demon army forced him into a desperate situation, would Qin Haoshuan lead the human army to rescue him? Qin Chuan was 100% sure that Qin Haoshuan wouldn't. But if he refused, once the human army was defeated and suffered heavy casualties, who would be responsible for it? Needless to say, it would definitely be him, Qin Chuan. A selfish person who couldn't consider the entire human army would definitely not be accepted by the world and would definitely be rejected and reviled. Once such a situation occurred, even if he was still alive, he would feel worse than death. This was the trap that Qin Haoshuan had set for him. No matter whether he accepted or refused, he would not have a good ending. No wonder he's the Qilin son of the Qin family. He's really powerful. Qin Chuan said with a wry smile. In order to trap me, he was willing to gamble with the lives of 500 people. This is something that I didn't expect. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Shimin Bei's expression changed slightly, and he asked, "What do you mean? Shimin Bei, I treat you as a friend." Qin Chuan looked at Shimin Bei seriously. "This time, I will accept your request as a friend to lure the demon army, but after that, we will no longer be friends." Shimin Bei's expression became extremely complicated. He lowered his head and looked at the brocade box in his hand. For a moment, he didn't know whether he wanted Qin Chuan to accept or Qin Chuan to refuse. "Qin Chuan, are you crazy?" Zhou Lin turned around and glared at Qin Chuan. "You're courting death." Facing Zhou Lin's anger, Qin Chuan smiled faintly and said to Zhou Lin, "Senior sister, you know that if I accept, I can still live. If I refuse, it will be worse than death. Are the opinions of the world really that important?" Zhou Lin looked at Qin Chuan with a puzzled expression. "Do you have to sacrifice yourself for some people who don't understand or appreciate you? What you said is not important. What's important is that I have no choice." Qin Chuan pursed his lips. Suddenly, he struck Zhou Lin's nape with his palm and knocked her unconscious. Qin Chuan stretched out his hand and gently pulled the unconscious Zhou Lin into his embrace. He leaned over and gently kissed Zhou Lin's forehead. After that, he turned his gaze towards Duan Yusin and said to her, "Big sister Exant, if senior sister were awake, she would definitely stop me. So I could only knock her out. I'll have to trouble you to take care of her from now on." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Duan Yusin looked at Qin Chuan with an extremely sad expression and asked, "Have you really made up your mind?" "Yes." Qin Chuan gently handed Zhou Lin over to Duan Yusin. Then, he turned around and looked at Shimin Bei. He stretched out his hand and wanted to take the brocade box. However, Shimin Bei didn't let go of his hand. Qin Chuan smiled faintly and forcefully snatched the brocade box from Shimin Bei's hand. Then, he said to Shimin Bei, who had lowered his head, "If the monster race is really attracted by me, remember not to quarrel with Qin Haoshuan. Protect yourself. This is my last advice to you as a friend." Shimin Bei suddenly raised his head and stared at Qin Chuan with his red eyes. He gritted his teeth and said, "If he dares to frame you and not save you, I will definitely kill him." Qin Chuan grinned and shook his head. "You can do that, but it's not necessary because it's meaningless." Chapter 418. Little Zhong Mountain. Fei Peng stood in the air and looked at the seemingly empty little Zhong Mountain indifferently. He said to Bai Feng beside him, "Our Sky Rock Tribe, White Eagle Tribe, and Sky Horse Tribe should have about 500 people in total. We will divide into 5 groups of 100 people to search. As for the other land troops, we will divide into 10 groups of 100 people and surround Little Zhong Mountain. If there are any humans who want to break through, our aerial troops will immediately gather and support them. We must make sure that all humans remain in Little Zhong Mountain." Okay, Bai Feng nodded. He had no objection to Fei Peng's plan. However, the final decision was not in his or Fei Peng's hands. It was up to Princess Rao. Yao Rao lazily looked at Fei Peng and then looked at Bai Feng. She said indifferently, "You don't need to discuss these matters with me. I only care about Qin Chuan. Do you understand?" Fei Peng and Bai Feng looked at each other and saw some confusion in each other's eyes. They did not understand why Princess Rao was so obsessed with Qin Chuan. Even if Qin Chuan was the strongest person among the younger generation in the human world, he should not have received so much attention for Princess Rao. However, he could only think about these questions in his heart. It was impossible for him to ask. Since Princess Rao was not interested in the arrangement of the array, they could do whatever they wanted. "Everyone listen to my order. Act according to the original plan. Do not let anyone leave Little Zhong Mountain." Following Fei Peng's command, the demon race army immediately began to move. Thousands of land troops quickly surrounded the Little Zhong Mountain and formed a large formation. Another 500 aerial troops began to conduct a carpet search of the Little Zhong Mountain from the sky, checking every nook and cranny of the mountain. On the ground, in a hidden cave, Su Kuang looked at the sky outside through a small gap. He said in a deep voice, "The demon race has already surrounded Little Zhong Mountain. Their aerial troops will affect us too much." Before this, they did not know which tribes had entered the demon race. They also did not consider what to do if they encountered the aerial troops. At this time, they could only act according to the situation. Yi Qingning looked at the calm Qin Haoshuan with a subtle look in her eyes. She said softly, "Qin Haoshuan, you have never thought about how to deal with the demon clan's search and how to attack them, right? What nonsense are you talking about?" Qin Haoshuan glanced at Yi Qingning. "If it wasn't a deal with the monster clan, why would I gather so many people? Are you really dealing with the Yao clan?" Yi Qingning took a deep look at Qin Haoshuan and said, "It's too late for me to see your true goal now." "Nonsense." Qin Haoshuan's face darkened. "What do you gain from slandering me like this?" Yi Qingning sneered and stopped arguing with Qin Haoshuan. She looked at Su Kuang and said, "I'm going to gather the people of my Yi clan to break out of this encirclement. I don't care about the others." Su Kuang frowned slightly. Then, he looked at Qin Haoshuan and asked, "What do you mean?" "I don't mean anything. I want to live and die with everyone, so that some people won't keep attacking me." Qin Haoshuan snorted coldly. "The reason why I gathered all of you together is that I hope to reverse the unfavorable situation of our human clan in the carefree secret realm. Don't you want to defeat the demon clan head-on? All right, let's not talk about such high-sounding words." Su Kuang looked at Qin Haoshuan indifferently. "Your goal should have been achieved. You can prepare to break out of this encirclement. I can't let dozens of people of the deity Sword Villa die here. What else have you prepared? Take it out now. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." Qin Haoshuan stared at Su Kuang sharply and asked with a sneer, "How are you going to be impolite to me? Are you going to start an internal strife before the Yao clan finds us?" Su Kuang snorted coldly and didn't say anything. However, his attitude was very clear. If Qin Haoshuan intended to kill them, he would make Qin Haoshuan suffer even if he had to risk being discovered by the Yao clan. Qin Haoshuan saw that Su Kuang didn't say anything, so he took out a disc from his storage ring and said faintly, "This is a transfer roulette. It can transfer people to a place thousands of miles away in an instant. The more people you need to transfer, the longer it will take. With this thing, as long as I have time, I can take everyone away." Looking at the transfer roulette in Qin Haoshuan's hand, Yi Qingning was a little surprised. "You actually brought this thing in." Su Kuang's eyes were also very subtle. He asked curiously, "Is this the best grade magic weapon that General Qin obtained after passing the trial of the Glazed Pagoda in the Carefree Secret Realm? The transfer roulette that could transfer people at will?" "That's right. Before I came in, my father borrowed this transfer roulette from my aunt. With this, no one can kill me." Qin Haoshuan smiled confidently and said to the two, "Now, you should understand why I'm so confident." Su Kuang sneered and said disdainfully, "General Qin used this transfer roulette to kill everyone in the Yao clan and made a great name for himself. You, on the other hand, want to use this transfer roulette to trap others and then escape. The Qilin son of the Qin clan is really something." "Su Kuang, don't be too arrogant." Qin Haoshuan was furious. "Later, you still need me to take you away." "Maybe." Su Kuang sneered. "I'm really afraid that you'll leave me alone. You two, stop quarreling. There's a fight outside." Yi Qingning looked outside through the gap. The Yao clan's aerial troops had discovered the first batch of people they had ambushed. At this time, a great battle had broken out. Nearly 50 Foundation establishment cultivators were besieged by hundreds of Yao clan's demon generals. They had fallen into a passive situation at the beginning and were in imminent danger. "It won't take long for them to find us here." Su Kuang took a deep look at Qin Haoshuan and said, "I'll go outside and meet these Yao clan's demon generals. I'll buy you enough time to activate the transfer roulette. It doesn't matter if you take me away or not. But if you dare to leave the others behind in the deity Sword Villa, I won't forgive you." Qin Haoshuan snorted and didn't say anything. He knew that Su Kuang and Yi Qingning looked down on him, but he didn't care. As long as he could frame the guy who sent him into the abyss, nothing else mattered. Fight, kill, and die. The more people die, the more infamy Qin Xuan will have to bear. This time, even if he doesn't die in the hands of the Yao clan, he will be despised by the world. Only I am the most powerful person in the world. Chapter 419. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out, and a pitch-black long sword slashed through the air, directly killing a member of the White Eagle tribe on the spot. Feathers flew everywhere, and blood splattered all over the sky. Then, the black long sword turned around and pointed at another member of the Pegasus tribe. Sword Chi was unstoppable. In the distance, Ma Jiawen frowned and looked at the corpse of the Pegasus tribe member falling from the sky. She said to Bai Feng, "Who did it?" Looking at the style, it should be someone from the deity Sword Villa. If I'm not wrong, it should be Su Kuang. Bai Feng pondered for a moment and said to Ma Jiawen, "Su Kuang is the most outstanding genius of the younger generation in the deity Sword Villa. His strength is on par with ours. We have to be careful." "What's there to be careful about?" Fei Peng snorted. "Let me meet him." Just as Fei Peng was about to move, Chao Rong, who was on the ground, was one step ahead of him. She leaped over the mountains like lightning and arrived in front of Su Kuang in the blink of an eye. Her vigorous body leaped high, and her sharp claws swept straight towards Su Kuang's chest. At this time, Su Kuang was concentrating on controlling the sword. Chao Rong came too fast, and suddenly, Su Kuang didn't have time to react and was hit by Chao Rong's claw on the chest. He immediately flew out and crashed into a pile of rocks, making a rumbling sound. Whoosh! Kuang Jian suddenly gave up on his opponent in the air and rushed toward Chao Rong. Chao Rong had already turned into his human form. He took out a huge spotted claw and slapped it toward Kuang Jian. Clang! The berserk sword and the claw collided, producing a crisp sound of metal clashing. At the same time, Su Kuang also jumped out from the pile of rocks. The berserk sword rotated in the air and returned to Su Kuang's side, protecting him. Chao Rong looked at Su Kuang, who just climbed out of the pile of rocks, and sneered. "You're so tough. You're not hurt at all." Su Kuang stared at Chao Rong with sharp eyes and asked, "Who are you?" Chao Rong's face showed a touch of arrogance, and he replied faintly, "Holy son of the Golden Leopard tribe, Chao Rong." "Got it." Su Kuang took a deep look at Chao Rong. "Today I, Su Kuang, will slay the Holy Sun and spread the name of my deity, Sword Manor." Su Kuang let out a low growl. With the berserk sword in hand, his figure was like lightning, and his aura was as sharp as the wind. He brazenly attacked Chao Rong. At this time, facing Su Kuang, who was going all out, the smile on Chao Rong's face disappeared. His expression became dignified. He waved the claws in his hand to resist Su Kuang's attack. At first, there was some effect, but later on, it became difficult. In just a short moment, Su Kuang had completely suppressed Chao Rong. In the distance, Fei Peng, who was watching the battle, couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly when he saw this scene. He said to Bai Feng, "Sword cultivators are truly the cultivators most skilled at attacking in the human race. In terms of pure attack power, I'm inferior to him." Although Fei Peng's character was arrogant, he wasn't the kind of person who was blindly arrogant. If he were to switch places with Chao Rong, facing Su Kuang's storm-like attacks, his performance might not be any better than Chao Rong's. Although sword cultivators' attacks are strong, they're slightly lacking in other aspects. Bai Feng looked at the changes in the battle situation and said to Fei Peng, "Su Kuang's attacks are fierce, but the consumption of spiritual power is too great. He won't be able to last long. As long as Chao Rong can hold on until Su Kuang's attacks weaken, he can counterattack." "It's easy to say," Ma Zhouwen smiled. "If Chao Rong doesn't turn around and run in circles with Su Kuang, he might not be able to hold on until then." The few holy sons and holy daughters grew up together, so they were quite familiar with each other's strength. Other than Princess Rao, no one dared to say that they could firmly suppress Chao Rong. At this time, seeing Chao Rong being suppressed by Su Kuang's threat level increased by more than one level. The human race shouldn't only have Su Kuang as a powerhouse. Where are the others? Bai Feng looked around. At this time, their aerial troops had already discovered a large number of human figures and were trying their best to encircle them. However, other than Su Kuang, there were no other powerhouses. This was really strange. As far as I know, the person who gathered these humans should be that genius of the Qin clan. Now that he has disappeared, he should be secretly doing something shameful. Ma Zhouwen said to Bai Feng, "We still have to be careful. Rumor has it that that person's strength is above Su Kuang's. Your information is a bit too outdated. Although that Qin Haoshuan is strong, it's already in the past." In the ranking competition of the 6 great academies, Qin Xuan defeated Qin Haoshuan and took away the dragon soul that Qin Haoshuan relied on the most. The current Qin Haoshuan, is probably not even comparable to that damn fatty of the white pig tribe. Fei Peng sneered, completely not putting Qin Haoshuan in his eyes. "By the way, have you seen Qin Xuan's figure?" Bai Feng suddenly frowned. If Qin Xuan wasn't here, they wouldn't be able to explain it to Princess Rao. "I haven't seen him. Maybe he's hiding in a corner and secretly observing us." Fei Peng sneered, "I'd like to meet him." Just as Fei Peng and the others were chatting, the battle between Su Kuang and Chao Rong on the other side had reached its climax. Chao Rong, who had been suppressed for a long time, was furious. He didn't care about anything else and brazenly transformed into his original form. He roared and pounced on Su Kuang. Su Kuang didn't show any mercy when facing Chao Rong's flaw. He stabbed out with the berserk sword in his hand. The fierce sword Qi tore apart Chao Rong's protective demon Qi and directly pierced into Chao Rong's abdomen. At the same time, Chao Rong also pushed Su Kuang to the ground. He opened his mouth and fiercely bit Su Kuang's head. Puff! Chao Rong's sharp fangs didn't directly bite Su Kuang's head. Instead, they pierced through Su Kuang's shoulder. White bones and flesh were badly mutilated. Gulp! Chao Rong fiercely swallowed a mouthful of blood that flowed out from Su Kuang's shoulder. The expression on his face became more ferocious. He suddenly clamped his jaws together and unexpectedly tore off Su Kuang's left arm from his shoulder. Whoosh! The intense pain didn't make Su Kuang cry out in pain. Instead, it aroused the blood in Su Kuang's heart. He clenched his berserk sword and swept it out. Chao Rong's abdomen was directly cut open with a huge wound. A part of his hind leg was also cut off. Roar! Chao Rong didn't have the same endurance as Su Kuang. He opened his mouth and let out a miserable cry. He suddenly retreated. Su Kuang climbed up from the ground and reached out to pick up his left arm that fell on the ground. He opened his mouth and actually launched an attack on Chao Rong again. Berserk sword intent, slaughter. In Su Kuang's indistinct roar, the turbulent spiritual power gushed out from the berserk sword. Under the biting, cold, killing intent, it turned into an astonishing sword chi and directly pierced towards Chao Rong's head. Chapter 420. Facing Su Kuang's sword, which was brimming with killing intent, Chao Rong's expression couldn't help but change into panic and despair. He couldn't dodge this sword, nor could he block this sword. Just when the sword was about to hit Chao Rong, a pure white feather slowly floated down from the sky and very exquisitely blocked the only path of Crazy Sword. This feather actually easily blocked Su Kuang's angry attack. Looking at the white feather that blocked Crazy Sword, Su Kuang's face couldn't help but reveal a touch of astonishment. Although Chao Rong's character is not good and he is also very arrogant, but after all he is my follower. If you want to kill him, you have to ask my opinion first. In the sky, Yao Rao, who was wearing a black skirt, slowly descended and stood on top of the white feather, then said to Su Kuang with a smile, "You sword cultivator is quite fierce. You almost left a sword mark on my fantasy spirit feather." Su Kuang withdrew his hand and put Crazy Sword back into its scabbard. Then he grabbed his left arm, which was held in his mouth, with his right hand. Sizing up beautiful and sexy Yao Rao, he asked, "Who are you?" "I am Yao Rao. Everyone generally calls me Princess Yao Rao." Yao Rao looked at Su Kuang. "If you answer my question, I will spare your life. How about it?" Having heard this, Su Kuang sneered. "You want me to beg for mercy from you?" "No, I just don't want you to die so early, that's all. You still have a long way to go, so you always need one or two interesting opponents, don't you think so?" Yao Rao gently smiled and asked, "Where's Qin Chuan?" Su Kuang deeply looked at Yao Rao and said, "You are very concerned about Qin Chuan." "Yes." Yao Rao nodded her head and frankly said, "I want to know where's Qin Chuan. I have a very important matter to look for him." "No comment." Su Kuang shook his head. "If you want to kill me, then kill me." Although Su Kuang and Qin Chuan didn't have any good relationship, but he couldn't sell out Qin Chuan to Demon Clan in exchange for a chance to live. This was his sword cultivator's way, advancing courageously with a clear conscience. Having heard this, Yao Rao subtly looked at Su Kuang and asked, "Are you really not afraid of death?" Su Kuang calmly looked at Yao Rao and replied, "Everyone is doomed to die." "Good, everyone is bound to die. It doesn't matter if you die, but what about the other people of your deity, Sword Villa?" Yao Rao chuckled. "Don't you care about their life and death?" Facing Yao Rao's threat, Su Kuang didn't care, because he had already warned Qin Haoshuan time and time again that he must take away the other people of deity Sword Villa. With teleportation roulette, even if Yao Rao had the ability to reach the heavens, she wouldn't be able to harm the other people of deity Sword Villa. Seeing that Su Kuang remained unmoved, the corners of Yao Rao's mouth rose slightly, and she said, "You wouldn't be counting on Qin Haoshuan, right?" Su Kuang's expression changed slightly when he heard this. He had a bad premonition in his heart. The transfer roulette made a great name for itself back then. How could I not know about it? Yao Rao pointed towards a hill not far away and said to Su Kuang, "With Qin Haoshuan's ability, if he wanted to escape by himself, then perhaps I wouldn't be able to find him, and I wouldn't be able to restrict him. But he has made such a big movement, and he wants me to know nothing. Isn't he looking down on me too much? Such obvious space fluctuation. Do you really think I can't sense it?" Hearing Yao Rao's words, Su Kuang subconsciously turned his head and looked towards that hill. That hill was precisely the place where he and Qin Haoshuan were hiding. Even if he wasn't very sensitive to space fluctuation, he could still clearly perceive that there was extremely unusual space fluctuation there. Unfortunately, before I entered the unfettered secret realm, I asked for something from my father, the Emperor, called the Void Trap. While speaking, Yao Rao took out a pitch-black ball-shaped thing and played within her hand, then said to Su Kwang with a smile, "As long as I throw this thing when they start to teleport, they will suddenly be cut into pieces by the chaotic space in the process of teleportation. Do you want to see the beautiful picture of minced meat falling down from the sky?" Hearing Yao Rao's words, Su Kwang seemed to be able to see the picture of hundreds and thousands of people being cut into pieces by the chaotic space, and his complexion couldn't help but become deathly pale. They're about to start the teleportation, so are you ready? Yao Rao looked at the hill not far away and made a throwing motion. "Wait a minute," Su Kwang shouted. "Don't kill them." "Okay." Yao Rao smiled, then once again took out a feather fan, then lightly waved it towards the direction of the hill. A cool breeze blew, and that violent space fluctuation seemed to have solidified and stopped. In the cave, Qin Haoshuan looked at the transfer roulette in his hand, and the expression on his face was somewhat strange. He didn't understand why he had already activated the transfer roulette, but there wasn't any effect. He had clearly felt the change in space just a moment ago. "No need to look. We have been intercepted." Yi Qingning looked outside the cave with dignified expression, and the expression on her face was extremely complicated. "What happened?" Qin Haoshuan looked at Yi Qingning. "Who intercepted us? Just a moment ago, when you activated the transfer roulette, that demoness waved the feather fan in her hand towards us." Yi Qingning turned to look at Qin Haoshuan. "We have already been discovered. She stopped our plan." "How is this possible?" Qin Haoshuan looked at Yi Qingning in disbelief. "No one can stop the transfer roulette." "But she did do it." Yi Qingning pursed her lips, looked at those figures in the depths of the cave, and sighed. Get ready for battle. The plan to leave here with the help of the transfer roulette had failed, so they had to face the demon race directly. If they won, they could leave here alive, but if they lost, they would be buried here. No, how could this be? This wasn't the plan. In the crowd, some people cried out in despair. They didn't want to die. They wanted to leave here alive. Didn't you say that you could severely injure the demon race? Why is it that the demon race is slaughtering us now? We are all Foundation establishment cultivators, and the opponent is also a demon general. They have more people than us. We can't win at all. We are dead meat. We are dead meat. Why did I follow you here? I don't want to die. Looking at those panicked and frightened expressions, Yi Qingning couldn't help but show a touch of helplessness. At this moment, she was even more certain of her previous thoughts. Qin Haoshuan didn't want to lead these people to do anything amazing. He just wanted to sacrifice some people and push all the blame on a Qin Chuan. Just as Yi Qingning was thinking about this, someone in the crowd suddenly shouted, "Where's Qin Chuan? Didn't you say that Qin Chuan would use the fake key to lure the demon race away? Where is he?" Chapter 421. The expression on Qin Haoshuan's face gradually became strange when he heard the noise from the crowd. He realized that the transfer roulette could still be used, but it couldn't be used for large-scale teleportation. This meant that he could leave at any time if he wanted to. After confirming that his life was not in danger, Qin Haoshuan's expression could not help but become righteous. He took a deep look at the crowd in the cave and said loudly, "Stop arguing." Hearing Qin Haoshuan's words, the noisy crowd gradually quieted down and looked at Qin Haoshuan in unison. Qin Haoshuan looked at the crowd with gloomy eyes and said coldly, "Look at you now. You are from the human clan, and the people outside are from the demon clan. Is this how you treat the demon clan? People like you are trash even if you get out of here alive. Trash who only knows how to blame others for their mistakes." Following Qin Haoshuan's words, the cave became completely silent. No one had expected Qin Haoshuan to say such words. Our original plan does require Qin Chuan's cooperation. But without Qin Chuan's cooperation, can we not do anything? Qin Haoshuan looked at the crowd with cold eyes and asked, "If any of you want to bow down to the demon clan, go and beg them for mercy now. Maybe they will be kind enough to let you go. We don't want to surrender to the demon clan. We just don't have a chance of winning." Those who could enter the carefree secret realm, whether they were from aristocratic families, sects, or commoners, were all geniuses. They all had their own pride and dignity. No one would admit that they were afraid of the demon clan, the mortal enemy of the human clan for thousands of years. If they really admitted it, even if they died, their names would be despised forever. Chance of winning? Tell me, have you fought with the demon clan? Qin Haoshuan snorted coldly. If you haven't fought with them, how do you know that you have no chance of winning? Yi Qingning looked at Qin Haoshuan in surprise. She found it hard to believe. She felt that Qin Haoshuan had become a different person. He made her feel like a stranger. In the face of Qin Haoshuan's questioning, no one could refute. No one was willing to admit that they were afraid before the battle. Whether or not Qin Xuan will cooperate with our plan is Qin Xuan's problem. Whether or not we can defeat the demon race, we will only know after the battle. The situation is far from hopeless. Do you really want to bow down to the demon race? Qin Haoshuan pointed outside and said loudly, "Go and take a look. Su Kuang is right outside. His status is more honorable than any of you here, but he chose to fight to the death in the face of the demon clan. Isn't he afraid of death? Of course. But even if he dies, he will never bow down to the demon clan. Now, I'm going to go out and face the demons. Those of you who are afraid of death can hide here for the rest of your life." After saying this, Qin Haoshuan turned around and walked outside. He was duty-bound and awe-inspiring. Looking at Qin Haoshuan's back as he turned around and left, everyone felt a flame burning in their hearts. Anger towards their own cowardice, hatred towards the demon race, and shame towards their past actions had all turned into a crazy flame, completely igniting the blood in their bodies. "Let's go. Let's follow Master Qin and kill our way out. I'd rather die standing than beg for my life on my knees. Let's go. Kill our way out. Kill every single one of the demon clan. It's not a loss to kill one, but it's a profit to kill two." Amidst the roars, everyone began to move. They strode outside. Even those who were hesitant in their hearts were affected by the majority's actions. They walked outside and joined the crowd. Yi Qingning stood aside and witnessed the change of emotions from fear and despair to determination and anger. She was extremely shocked. She was not shocked because of the change in emotions, but because of Qin Haoshuan's awe-inspiring words. At this time, Yi Qingning could not help but doubt her previous judgment. Perhaps she had wronged Qin Haoshuan. Was Qin Haoshuan really a man who was willing to sacrifice himself for the greater good of the human clan? Just as Yi Qingning was thinking about this, Qin Haoshuan's earth-shattering roar sounded outside the cave. "Where is the holy son of the demon clan? Today I, Qin Haoshuan, will fight against all of you and spread the name of the human clan." Hearing this bloody declaration, Yi Qingning couldn't help but become a little confused as she looked outside the cave. "Qin Haoshuan, what the hell are you doing?" In the sky, Yao Rao was looking at Qin Haoshuan's righteous face with subtle expression. When she saw the transfer roulette in Qin Haoshuan's hand, the corners of her mouth slightly rose, and she asked, "You are Qin Haoshuan?" Qin Haoshuan looked at Yao Rao with grim expression and asked, "Who are you?" "You can call me Princess Rao." Yao Rao indifferently said to Qin Haoshuan, "I am very interested in the transfer roulette in your hand. Can you lend it to me to have a look?" "Princess Rao?" Qin Haoshuan seemed to have thought of something. "Are you the daughter of Demon Emperor? It seems you have heard of me." Yao Rao looked at Qin Haoshuan with seductive eyes. "Since that is the case, why didn't you escape by yourself, but instead chose to show yourself?" Hearing Yao Rao, Qin Haoshuan coldly snorted and said, "My human clan's army is here. As the leader, how can I escape? If I want to escape, I will first kill your demon clan, then leave with a great victory." When everyone behind Qin Haoshuan heard these words, they felt their blood boiling in their chest. This was the leader of their human clan's younger generation, and only this kind of person could subdue them. Yi Qingning, who was following behind the crowd, looked at Qin Haoshuan's tall and straight back, and a subtle feeling was born in her heart. Suddenly, she felt that she had gotten to know another side of Qin Haoshuan. Su Kuang looked at Qin Haoshuan with extremely surprised expression. He really hadn't expected that Qin Haoshuan would actually have such an astonishing performance in this kind of desperate situation. Yao Rao playfully looked at Qin Haoshuan, whose imposing aura had risen to the peak. Then, with a chuckle, she indifferently said, "Are you sure you're not so arrogant because you have the transfer roulette and can escape at any time? If you throw away the transfer roulette and still dare to stand in front of me and say such words, then I will truly admire you." Hearing Yao Rao, Qin Haoshuan's complexion couldn't help but slightly changed, but very soon he reacted, then angrily shouted towards Yao Rao, "Demonis, prepare to die." Before his voice fell, Qin Haoshuan had already rushed towards Yao Rao, who was standing in the sky, and used extreme wind technique. Its momentum was astonishing, and it had the power to sweep away thousands of soldiers. Chapter 422. Extreme Wind Sword. Qin Haoshuan roared, and the spiritual power within his whole body surged, then converged into a huge wind sword in his hand, then brazenly stabbed towards Yao Rao, who was standing in the sky. Whoosh! Wind sword whistled, sweeping along with a gale, and appeared in front of Yao Rao in an irresistible manner. At this time, Yao Rao raised the feather fan in her hand and lightly waved it. Then that wind sword which had already arrived in front of her was suddenly dispersed. The remaining wind brushed past Yao Rao's hair, and the corner of Yao Rao's mouth rose, outlining a charming arc. Qin Haoshuan, is this all you have? If this is all you have, then this is too disappointing. Qin Haoshuan looked at that dispersed wind sword with disbelief expression, and his face was filled with shock. Although this attack was not his full strength attack, but he had used at least 70% of his strength. If Yao Rao had dodged this attack, then he wouldn't have lost control like this. But Yao Rao had casually waved her hand and dispersed his wind sword. You should be careful. The feather fan in her hand is not simple. Su Kuang warned Qin Haoshuan. Just now she had used that feather fan to interrupt the space transfer of transfer roulette. I suspect that feather fan in her hand has the ability to break any magic which is activated by spiritual power, such as your wind sword and the space transfer of transfer roulette. Hearing Su Kuang, Qin Haoshuan couldn't help but look towards the feather fan in the hand of Yao Rao, and at the same time his shocked state of mind also calmed down a lot. As long as Yao Rao didn't rely on her own strength to defeat his wind sword, then he had nothing to worry about. Humph! Merely relying on the advantage of magic weapon. Qin Haoshuan coldly snorted, then once again attacked Yao Rao. Extreme Wind Tornado. Gale once again whistled and swept towards Yao Rao in the sky. This time his attack was scattered. He wanted to test the might of the feather fan in the hand of Yao Rao. Facing the sweeping gale, Yao Rao also lightly waved her feather fan, and the gale dissipated and disappeared. Seeing this scene, Qin Haoshuan's complexion couldn't help but become completely gloomy. No matter if it was a concentrated attack or a scattered attack, both of them were unable to have any effect on Yao Rao. This also indicated that if he wanted to fight with Yao Rao, then spiritual power wouldn't play any role, and he had to engage in hand-to-hand combat. If it was before when he possessed the form of Extreme Wind Dragon, Qin Haoshuan would naturally be willing to engage in hand combat with Yao Rao. But now his dragon soul had been extracted by Qin Xuan, and he had lost his extreme wind dragon form, and the strength of his body had decreased by more than 1 grade. So if he wanted to engage in hand-to-hand combat with Yao Rao, who was well known for their physical body, then he would be courting death himself. But if he didn't fight with Yao Rao, then the popularity and prestige that he had gathered with great difficulty would definitely suffer an extremely serious blow. What other skill do you still have skills? Seeing the gloomy expression on Qin Haoshuan's face, Yao Rao said with a smile, "If you don't have any other skill, then I will make my move." Hearing Yao Rao, Qin Haoshuan's complexion changed again and again, and just when he was hesitating, Yao Rao moved. She sat on the white feather and slowly floated towards Qin Haoshuan. Obviously, her movement seemed very gentle and very slow, but Qin Haoshuan felt as if he was facing an ancient strange beast, and even his soul couldn't help but tremble. Whoosh! A burst of breeze blew past, and Qin Haoshuan felt some pain on his cheek, so he subconsciously reached out his hand to touch it. He felt warm to the touch, and scarlet blood dyed his fingers red. Next moment, as if soul-corroding severe, pain came from his face. Qin Haoshuan couldn't help but cry out in pain. Ayo, ayo, ayo. Looking at pale-complexioned Qin Haoshuan, who was endlessly howling in grief while covering his face, everyone's face revealed a touch of panic. They completely didn't know what had happened, and the morale which they had gathered with great difficulty just a moment ago had immediately crumbled. Buzz! Along with a burst of buzzing sound, Qin Haoshuan's howling suddenly disappeared, and Qin Haoshuan also disappeared together with him. Seeing this scene, Yao Rao couldn't help but sneered and said, "I really thought I had encountered a courageous genius of human clan, but never thought he was only like this." Hearing Yao Rao's words, and again looking at the place where Qin Haoshuan had disappeared, at this moment everyone understood that Qin Haoshuan's bravery just a moment ago was merely a facade, and he had only dared to say those inspiring words because he possessed the transfer roulette which could teleport him away at any time. Now that the real danger had arrived, everyone was finally able to clearly see Qin Haoshuan's true face. Yi Qingning felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured on her face, making her instantly sober up. The so-called Qilin son of Qin clan, the leader of the younger generation of human clan, was merely a joke, nothing more. Truly ridiculous. Just a moment ago, I was actually tempted by him. Yi Qingning's face revealed a mocking smile. She had truly lost her head. She had actually been deceived by Qin Haoshuan's hypocrisy, and had actually been tempted by him. In the end, all of this was merely a farce, nothing more. Looking at the dejected expression of human clan, Yao Rao's beautiful and alluring face couldn't help but reveal a charming smile. Then she said to everyone with a smile, "What's wrong? Seeing that hypocritical guy abandoned you and ran away, you seem to be very sad." Yi Qingning looked towards Yao Rao, then said in deep voice, "Demonis, even if we die, we won't lower our heads to you, so you don't need to mock and ridicule us." Yao Rao turned her eyes towards Yi Qingning, and as if she could see the true face of Yi Qingning through the veil, her eyes flashed with bright and beautiful splendor. Then she said to Yi Qingning, "I really didn't expect that human clan would actually have such an outstanding woman like you. You are Yi Qingning, who is known as Star Dragon Divine Maiden, right?" "I am Yi Qingning." Yi Qingning calmly admitted her identity. She was about to die, so there was nothing to be afraid of. "Yes, you are indeed a very attractive woman." Yao Rao faintly smiled, then said to the demons beside her, "Do you see that graceful woman? That is Divine Star Dragon Lady, whose appearance is comparable to this Empress. If any of you can capture her alive, I will bestow her to you." Hearing the words of Yao Rao, all the demons excitedly roared, and each and every one of them looked at Yi Qingning with greedy and burning gaze. On the other side, the complexion of Yi Qingning suddenly became gloomy. She had never expected that Yao Rao would actually publicly humiliate her like this. "Fellow compatriots, my human clan would rather die standing than live kneeling. I, Yi Qingning, hereby make an oath. If anyone can stand up and defeat Demon Clan and lead us out of this encirclement, I, Yi Qingning, will marry that person, and I will never regret it for the rest of my life." Hearing the words of Yi Qingning, the crowd suddenly burst into cries of alarm. Who would have thought that in this desperate situation, Yi Qingning would actually make such a promise? But under the heavy encirclement of Demon Clan, who would be able to stand up bravely? Chapter 423. You're dreaming. Yao Rao looked at Yi Qingning with playful eyes, then chuckled and said, "In this kind of desperate situation, who do you think can rescue you? This guy with a broken arm should be the strongest among you, right? He is already like this, so who else can you count on?" Everyone's courage, which had been stimulated by the promise of Yi Qingning with great difficulty, quickly dissipated under the cynicism and ridicule of Yao Rao. Just like Yao Rao had said, even Su Kuang, who was known as Little Sword God, had already fallen into such a miserable end, so no one among them could stand up and fight against Demon Clan. Facing the depressed mood of everyone, Yi Qingning's face was full of helplessness and bitterness. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have believed Qin Haoshuan's nonsense, and should have promptly pulled out and left, but now it was already too late. Well, look at how scared you all are. This Empress is also not that kind of person who likes to kill indiscriminately. As long as you can answer my question to my satisfaction, I will let you all off. Hearing Yao Rao, everyone couldn't help but raise their eyes and look towards Yao Rao, even though they knew in their heart that Yao Rao was most likely deceiving them. But facing this was practically their only chance to survive, so they were really unwilling to let it go like this. Facing the gaze of everyone, Yao Rao faintly smiled and said, "My question is very simple. That is, where is Qin Chuan? As long as you tell me where is Qin Chuan, I will let you all off." Hearing Yao Rao's question, everyone's face revealed a subtle expression. Who would have thought that Yao Rao's question would actually be this? We human race don't have scum who would betray fellow humans. Su Kuang angrily shouted, "If you want to kill me, then do as you wish." These words of Su Kuang made the complexion of some people who originally wanted to reveal the whereabouts of Qin Chuan become somewhat unsightly. If they revealed the whereabouts of Qin Chuan in order to survive, then even if they left alive, perhaps they would be spurned for their entire life and would never be able to raise their heads. You are really too hateful. Yao Rao, somewhat displeased, looked at Su Kuang, then casually waved her hand, and Su Kuang's body as if being hit by an artillery shell. Rumbling sound was heard as his body sunk into the ground. After dealing with Su Kuang, Yao Rao once again looked at everyone and said, "My condition is still the same. As long as you tell me the whereabouts of Qin Chuan, you can leave here alive. If you're worried about being spurned by the human race, I can help you kill everyone here. That way, no one will know that you have betrayed Qin Chuan." Hearing the words of Yao Rao, everyone felt a burst of chill in the depths of their heart. Yao Rao was clearly provoking the devil hidden in the depths of their heart, and wanted to thoroughly turn them into devil. What? No one knows where Qin Chuan is? Yao Rao slightly frowned. Could it be that you all want to die? Shao Yao Palace. Among the crowd, don't know who said Shao Yao Palace in an extremely low voice. Hearing this answer, Yao Rao lightly raised her eyebrows, then indifferently said, "Now, you have 3 seconds to answer my question. Shao Yao Palace. Qin Chuan is in Shao Yao Palace." "Yes, Shao Yao Palace." The instant Yao Rao's voice fell, several dozens of people responded almost at the same time among the crowd. They scrambled to be the first to repeat these 3 words, Shao Yao Palace, over and over again. In front of real life and death crisis, there was finally someone who unlocked the shackles in their heart and released the devil that was lurking in their heart. Yi Qingning looked at those people who had answered Yao Rao's question with grief and despair in her eyes. She really didn't expect that one day she would actually see such a ridiculous scene. A group of people who were called genius, facing the threat of demon race, scrambled to be the first to betray their own race and completely abandoned the conscience and morality in their heart. "You all are really not human." Among the crowd, someone angrily roared, "At worst we will die, but look at your appearance. You all are not human. We only told you the whereabouts of Qin Chuan. That's all, we didn't kill him." At this time, those people who had already released the devil in their heart no longer hid anything and were ashamed of anything, and righteously refuted everyone. Looking at the unrepentant appearance of these people, Yi Qingning's heart was filled with hatred. Because among these people, there were people of Yi family, and the majority of them were people of aristocratic families and sects. They enjoyed superior treatment in the Federation, but in the face of danger, they actually behaved worse than beasts. Ha ha, ha, this is really too interesting, too fun. A burst of unbridled and carefree laughter resounded above everyone's head. Yao Rao was sitting on a feather and was trembling with laughter. Fei Peng mischievously laughed and said to Bai Feng, "Do you see, this is the human race. I suddenly want to let them all go and wait until these people grow up. Perhaps we demon race don't need to do anything. They will destroy the world of human race by themselves." It is really hard to imagine that there are actually such cowards in the human race. Bai Feng sighed. In the end, how did these people resist the attack of demon race for thousands of years? I think most of those people are people of aristocratic families, and most of the people who are fighting against this demon race at the front line of human race are civilians. Ma Zhouan indifferently said to Bai Feng, "If the front line of human race was filled with such people, then the Star Dragon Federation would have long become a thing of the past." That makes sense. For the Star Dragon Federation to be able to stand for thousands of years without falling, we should really thank those hot-blooded civilians. Ha ha ha. Listening to the unbridled discussion of the demon race, the quarrel of the human race gradually quieted down. Those people who scrambled to answer Yao Rao's question couldn't help but blush at this time, feeling ashamed. It's really been a long time since I was so happy. Yao Rao looked at everyone with pondering eyes. "I am satisfied with your answer. Now, I will give you two choices. Either stay here and die together with others, or drill through this guy's crotch and leave. I guarantee, in unfettered secret territory, there won't be any demon race who will make things difficult for you." While speaking, Yao Rao pointed her white, jade-like finger towards a demon general of White Pig Division on the ground. That demon general mischievously laughed after getting the hint at Yao Rao. Then, taking 2 steps forward, he stood in front of everyone, then slowly parted his legs and said to everyone, "Come, if you want to live, drill through here. In any case, you have already lost enough face, so this time won't make a difference." Looking at the complacent expression of Demon General of White Pig Division, everyone felt that they had received the greatest insult, especially those people who had answered Yao Rao's question. At this time, they were even more regretful. Chapter 424. Looking at the humiliated crowd, Yao Rao chuckled and asked, "What? Don't tell me you don't want to live anymore? Do you want to die here?" "Demonis." Among the crowd, someone roared loudly. All the anger, humiliation, and despair in his heart were integrated into the word Demonis. Looking at the grief and indignation of the crowd, Yi Qingning's mood suddenly became a lot better. At least, these people didn't really give up everything for the sake of survival. At least, they still had the most basic self-respect and shame. "Demonis, if you want to kill or torture, do as you please. Demonis, you won't have a good death. Our human race's hero will definitely kill you and take revenge for us." Facing the angry and unwilling roars of the crowd, Yao Rao laughed extremely impudently. She looked at the crowd with a playful expression and said indifferently, "I am a demon, so calling me Demonis is quite appropriate. Since none of you want to leave here alive, I will fulfill your wish and kill all of you. All demon generals listen to my order, kill all humans, don't leave a single one alive." Along with the order of Yao Rao, all the demon generals simultaneously shouted and emitted astonishing killing intent. Just when they were preparing to move forward to encircle and annihilate the people of Human Clan, the clear sky suddenly became gloomy. Dark clouds densely covered the sky. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled, and a thick lightning fell from the sky, directly striking the head of that demon general of White Boar Clan, instantly turning this demon general of White Boar Clan into ashes. This sudden, unforeseen event stunned everyone present. Yi Qingning looked at the gloomy sky and seemed to have thought of something. Her beautiful face couldn't help but reveal a trace of expectation. Not only Yi Qingning, when they saw the lightning bolt that suddenly fell from the sky, the others also thought of the person who had never appeared but was an important part of their plan. "Black Moon Combat Academy, Qinchuan, be on guard," Bai Feng roared. The demon generals of the White Hawk tribe immediately spread out and protected Yao Rao in the center. Who is it? Fei Peng's sharp eyes looked at the surrounding sky. Come out for this holy sun. Whoosh! A hair-thin bolt of lightning approached from afar, almost instantly arriving in front of Fei Peng. It brushed past Fei Peng's cheek and disappeared. When he felt a stinging sensation on his face, Fei Peng subconsciously raised his hand to touch his cheek. There was a shallow wound there, and warm and viscous blood was slowly flowing out from the wound. Although this was only a small wound, it caused a huge impact to Fei Peng's mind. If this attack wasn't aimed at his face, but at his head, then perhaps he would already be dead. Obviously, this was only a warning from the other party. Thief, I know it's you. Come out. At this time, Yao Rao, who was sitting on the white feather, had already stood up. Her gaze was looking towards a hill 1,000 meters away, and said while beaming with smiles, "Others can't find you, but I can." Hearing the words of Yao Rao, everyone subconsciously followed the gaze of Yao Rao and looked towards the hill that was 1,000 meters away. A youngster wearing plain and simple white sportswear slowly appeared on the hill, and he was indifferently looking at the generals of Demon Clan with awe-inspiring, killing intent. This person, if he was not Qin Chuan, then who else could he be? I heard you're looking for me. Qin Chuan indifferently looked at Yao Rao and said in heavy voice, "Since you are looking for me, then why indiscriminately kill innocent people?" Facing Qin Chuan's indifferent gaze, Yao Rao's mood instantly became bad. She coldly snorted and said, "I am from Demon Clan, and they are from Human Clan. Demon Clan, killing Human Clan is right and proper." Good, right and proper. Qin Chuan looked at Yao Rao with extremely disappointed expression and coldly said, "If I had known earlier, then I would have killed you with one palm." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, all the demon generals and everyone present had subtle expression on their face. Could it be that Qin Chuan and Yao Rao had already met before? Moreover, listening to the meaning of Qin Chuan, he had also let off Yao Rao once. Just when everyone was guessing in their heart, Yao Rao was already unable to restrain her anger and said in stern voice, "All demon generals, listen to my order. Whoever can kill this little thief, this empress will heavily reward." Hearing the order of Yao Rao, all the demon generals immediately became active and roared as they rushed towards Qin Chuan to kill him. However, just when they were about to take action, a lightning power suddenly fell from the sky without any sign and turned them into ashes one by one. No one was able to escape by a fluke. After the lightning power continuously obliterated dozens of demon generals, the minds of the remaining demon generals sobered up at this moment. Princess Yao Rao's reward was admittedly attractive, but they had to be alive to receive the reward. Seeing all the demon generals cowering in fear, Yao Rao became furious and said to holy sons and saintesses of 6 tribes, "All of you, attack together." Wait a moment. Just when holy sons and saintesses of 6 tribes were preparing to attack, Qin Chuan suddenly shouted to stop. "Your target is me, so I will stay here and fight with you. Let them go." Qin Chuan stretched out his hand and pointed towards the crowd of human race. "Killing them won't bring you any benefit." Having heard what was said, Yao Rao looked towards the crowd of human race, then sneered and said, "Do you know, before you showed up, how did these people treat you?" Hearing the words of Yao Rao, those people who had once betrayed Qin Chuan lowered their head in shame and somewhat didn't dare to look at Qin Chuan. How they treat me is their business. How I treat them is my business. Qin Chuan pursed his lips, then said to Yao Rao, "As long as you let them go, I will stay here and accompany you to play until you are satisfied." "Okay," Yao Rao agreed. "I can let these people go, but if you dare to escape after this, then even if I have to chase you to the ends of the earth, I will kill all of them. Let them go." Along with the order of Yao Rao, the land forces of demon race opened up a gap in the encirclement, allowing human race to leave. Seeing the path of survival was close at hand, the expression of everyone looking at Qin Chuan couldn't help but become extremely complicated. "I'm sorry, Qin Chuan. Some people loudly shouted and apologized to Qin Chuan, then dashed towards the gap to leave. Some people bowed towards Qin Chuan, then left with sad expression. Some people wanted to stay and fight side by side with Qin Chuan, but they were dragged away by Qin Chuan. In this kind of situation, if they stayed, they would only become a burden to Qin Chuan. Yi Qingning, who was walking behind the crowd, looked at Qin Chuan's figure, then pursed her lips and said, "Qin Chuan, you are the real hero. You must come back alive." Hearing Yi Qingning, Qin Chuan faintly smiled, then nodded and said, "I will come back alive." Wait a minute. At this time, Yao Rao suddenly coldly looked at Yi Qingning, then said in heavy voice, "Others can leave, but you can't." Having heard this, Qin Chuan slightly frowned, then said to Yao Rao, "Your target is me. Why make things difficult for Miss Yi? What? You feel sorry for her?" Yao Rao coldly looked at Qin Chuan. "Do you still want to come back alive, then marry her?" Chapter 425. Along with the voice of Yao Rao, everyone also recalled that not long ago, Yi Qingning had promised that whoever could save them from the sea of suffering, she would marry that person and would never regret it for the rest of her life. Now all the people of human race have been saved by Qin Chuan. Then wouldn't Yi Qingming's promise be fulfilled by Qin Chuan? Merely, what was the relationship between this and Yao Rao? Why was she so agitated? What nonsense are you talking about? Qin Chuan frowned. Missy is also a member of human race. According to our agreement, she can naturally leave here. Qin Chuan didn't know about Yi Qingning's promise. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said those words. Less nonsense. Yao Rao nevertheless didn't care. Either let her stay, or don't even think about leaving. "I will stay." Yi Qingning didn't wait for Qin Chuan to speak, and took the initiative to say that she wanted to stay. She smiled and said to Qin Chuan, "You want to fight with demon race? How can you not have my human race as a witness? Although I can't accompany you to kill the enemy, but if you lose, I can accompany you to the Yellow Springs. You really have deep feelings." Yao Rao coldly snorted. "Whether he will die or not, I don't know, but don't think about leaving here alive today." While speaking, Yao Rao suddenly waved the feather fan in her hand, and with a whistling gale, she directly rushed towards Yi Qingning. Facing the sudden attack of Yao Rao, Yi Qingning subconsciously wanted to dodge, but at that moment, a tall and straight figure suddenly appeared in front of her, and the power of thunder wreaked havoc, tearing the gale to shreds. Looking at the figure in front of her, Yi Qingning's eyes couldn't help but reveal a touch of warmth. "Which?" Qin Chuan angrily glared at Yao Rao. "You are too much." "Which?" Yao Rao was furious. "Six tribes' holy sons. Listen to my order, kill him for me." Along with the order of Yao Rao, 6 tribes' holy sons immediately rushed towards Qin Chuan. Rock swooped down, and both of his hands changed into a pair of sharp golden claws, flickering with cold radiance, directly grabbed towards Qin Chuan's head. Berserk demon aura surged, and Heavenly Rock's phantom suddenly descended in front of Qin Chuan. Whoosh! The Heavenly Peng Phantom attacked Qin Chuan's spiritual world, but did not have any effect on Qin Chuan. Instead, Qin Chuan's spiritual power almost instantly shattered the Heavenly Peng Phantom, causing it to let out a muffled groan. The powerful and sharp golden claws also became weak at this moment. Clang! Qin Chuan punched out and collided with the flying Peng's golden claws once again. A powerful force erupted with an extremely violent impact, causing the flying Peng to fly backwards. However, Qin Chuan only took 2 small steps back. Crash! Suddenly, the ground beneath Qin Chuan's feet cracked, and a black snake tail as thick as a bucket shot out from it, heading straight for Qin Chuan's waist. Qin Chuan roared angrily, and a terrifying power erupted from beneath his feet, directly crushing the ground. The tyrannical power directly interrupted the snake tail's attack. Ta-ta-ta! Amidst the crisp sound of hooves, a pure white Pegasus flew towards Qin Chuan. Its hooves covered the sky and the sun, as if it could crush mountains and rivers. Sizzle! The violent power of thunder surged, instantly forming a barrier in front of the Pegasus, forcing it to stop attacking. On the other side, Bifone wanted to attack Qin Chuan from the sky several times, but he was blocked by the power of lightning that descended from the sky time and time again. The demon generals who were watching the battle from afar were all shocked by the scene of Qin Chuan and the chosen of the 5 tribes fighting. Who would have thought that the 5 strongest chosen of the demon clan would be unable to do anything to Qin Chuan? Not only that, Qin Chuan even felt like he was handling a butcher's cleaver with ease. Those who had retreated from the gap and hadn't gone far were equally shocked by Qin Chuan's performance. Compared to Qin Chuan's performance, what was Qin Haoshuan? However, these people only saw Qin Chuan's glory, but they didn't see Qin Chuan's hardships. If it weren't for the all-directional thunder prison that had been set up earlier, how could he have the ability to deal with the chosen of the 5 tribes at the same time? Before entering the carefree secret realm, Qin Chuan had brought a total of 10 middle-grade Thunder Spirit Stones. At this time, he had used all of them to set up the all-directional Thunder Prison. When the spiritual power of the 10 middle-grade Thunder Spirit Stones was exhausted, without the support of the all-directional Thunder Prison, his situation would become difficult. Behind Qin Chuan, Yi Qingning looked at Qin Chuan with her beautiful eyes, as if there was a galaxy surging in her eyes. Even though she was heavily surrounded at this time, she could only feel at ease. Qin Chuan, I don't talk. Qin Chuan didn't look back. At this time, he was trying his best to deal with the attacks coming from all directions. How could he have time to chat? Above the sky, Yao Rao looked at Qin Chuan, standing in front of Yi Qingning like a god of war, protecting Yi Qingning's safety. The anger in her eyes burned more and more violently. She gnashed her teeth and said, "Are you all trash? You can't even win against one person." Hearing Yao Rao's reprimand, everyone was speechless. If there weren't all-directional thunder prison obstructing them, how could they have let Qin Chuan persist until now? This damn thief is actually a talisman array master, and the talisman array he inscribed is actually so powerful. Fei Peng roared, "Ma Jiaowen, go find the location of the array disc and destroy his talisman array. It must be on that mountain." Hearing Fei Peng's words, Ma Jiaowen didn't say anything. Her figure turned into a streamer and flew towards the mountain where Qin Chuan had first appeared. Along the way, there were lightning forces obstructing her, but they were all blocked by Bifone. Ma Jiaowen's figure was like lightning. In the blink of an eye, she appeared on that mountain. Her lightning eyes looked all around and keenly found the arrayed disc in the crevice of the mountain. She attacked it without hesitation. The moment the arrayed disc shattered, the scene in front of her suddenly changed into a dense fog. Damn, it's a trap. Ma Jiaowen looked at the vast expanse of white fog in front of her, and her face couldn't help but reveal a touch of annoyance. Who would have thought that Qin Chuan would actually be so cunning and actually set up an illusion array on the mountain? On the other side, when Qin Chuan saw Ma Jiaowen trapped by the flying cloud talisman array, he also let out a long sigh of relief. If Ma Jiaowen hadn't been fooled and really found the location of all-directional Thunder Prison Array disc, then he would really be in danger. No, I can't continue to waste time like this. Qin Chuan clenched his teeth and said in a deep voice, "Miss Yi, step back." The moment Yi Qingning stepped back, Qin Chuan roared. His figures suddenly collided, and in the blink of an eye, he changed into a huge azure dragon. When Qin Chuan transformed into a dragon, several holy sons who were besieging Qin Chuan couldn't help but open their eyes wide and cried out in surprise. Dragon? How could he transform into a dragon? Not only were the holy sons surprised, Yao Rao was also shocked by this sudden change. Who would have thought that Qin Chuan could actually transform into a dragon? One must know, their demon race hadn't seen the figure of a dragon for thousands of years. Chapter 426. Roar! The azure dragon roared into the sky. The dragon's aura spread out, casting a shadow over the hearts of the demon generals. They felt uncomfortable all over. Even someone as strong as the Holy Sun could not escape from the suppression of the dragon's aura. Screech! Accompanied by an oppressive cry, a large rock with golden light appeared in the sky. Under the deterrence of Qin Xuan's azure dragon form, the rock had no choice but to revert to its original form to lessen the pressure in its heart. Whoosh! A gust of wind whistled past. Baifeng also transformed into his original form, a pure white giant eagle. On the other side, the snake dowager transformed into a black snake on the ground, hissing shrilly. Screech! Screech! The holy son of the great saint tribe, Sun Yu, who had been lurking and waiting for an opportunity to make his move, had also turned into a golden-haired monkey that was about 10 feet tall. He held a silver-white long staff in his hand, and his hairy face revealed an impatient expression. He seemed very uneasy. Shi Lulu. In the distance, Ma Jiaowen, who had been trapped on the mountain peak, finally broke through the binding of the flying cloud glyph array and escaped. She transformed into a pure white Pegasus with 2 huge wings and circled in the sky. Her lively eyes looked at the azure dragon in the sky and seemed to be very surprised. The golden rock looked at Qin Xuan sharply and asked in a deep voice, "Qin Xuan, are you a human or a demon?" Faced with the flying rock's question, Qin Xuan, who had transformed into an azure dragon, opened his mouth and spat out a dragon's breath. The azure power of thunder sprinkled down and protected Yi Qingning on the ground. After doing this, he said to the flying rock, "Of course I'm a human. Impossible." Baifeng gritted his teeth and said, "How can a human transform into a dragon? How can he have such a strong dragon's aura?" As the holy son of the White Eagle tribe, Baifeng absolutely did not believe that a pure human could transform into a pure dragon. Nothing is impossible. Qin Xuan looked at Baifeng indifferently. "Didn't you want to fight? Then continue." "Wait." At this time, Yarao suddenly stood out, and looking at Qin Xuan with extremely subtle expression, she said, "Qin Xuan, today's matter can end here, and I will let you all leave. How about it?" Hearing the words of Yarao, everyone present was startled. Who would have thought that Yarao would actually lower her head to Qin Xuan? Baifeng confusedly looked at Yarao and asked, "Princess Rao, why did you let them go? So what if he's really a dragon? You're also—" Baifeng, shut up. Yao Rao's cold eyes swept over Baifeng, warning him not to talk nonsense. She once again looked at Qin Xuan and asked, "Are you willing?" Qin Xuan deeply looked at Yao Rao and asked, "You won't be so kind-hearted, speak. What is the exchange condition? It's indeed relaxing to chat with smart people." Yao Rao slightly pursed her lips and said, "After we leave Unfettered Secret Realm, I want to invite you to Heavenly Monster Mountain as a guest." Hearing the words of Yao Rao, everyone was not startled this time. Rather, they were dumbfounded. A dignified princess of Demon Clan inviting a human to Demon Clan's most sacred Heavenly Monster Mountain as a guest. Are you sure this is not a joke? One must know, even those humans who had lived in Demon World for a long time didn't have this kind of treatment. Do you think I will go? Qin Xuan somewhat wanted to laugh. Going to Heavenly Monster Mountain as a guest. What's the difference between that and sending a sheep to the tiger's mouth? Seeing Qin Xuan revealing clear intention of refusal, Yao Rao immediately said to Qin Xuan, "I can guarantee you, absolutely no demon clan will harm you. I swear in the name of my imperial family." And demon clan? Only people with imperial bloodline were qualified to swear in the name of imperial family. Moreover, if they didn't abide by the promise, then they would definitely suffer the backlash of the oath. For Yao Rao to say such words, clearly she sincerely wanted to invite Qin Xuan to Heavenly Monster Mountain as a guest. Why did Yao Rao insist on inviting Qin Xuan to Heavenly Monster Mountain as a guest? This was a question that no one could figure out. Yao Rao had already shown enough sincerity, but Qin Xuan was still unwilling to go to Heavenly Monster Mountain. If he was a Yuanian cultivator, then perhaps he would take the risk by relying on his strength. But he was only a Foundation Establishment cultivator. Any demon commander could kill him with a slap. So for Yao Rao's promise, it was not worth it. So even though Yao Rao was full of sincerity, Qin Xuan still firmly shook his head and refused. I'm sorry, I don't want to go. So, if you want to fight, then fight. Qin Xuan's refusal was within the expectation of numerous demon generals. If it was them, they also wouldn't be stupid enough to go to Star Dragon City alone, because that was no different from throwing away their lives. Qin Xuan, don't force me. Yao Rao was extremely angry. She had never seen someone like Qin Xuan who didn't give her any face. You are from demon race. I am from human race. There is nothing to talk about. Qin Xuan coldly looked at Yao Rao, completely unmoved. Having heard what was said, Yao Rao was unable to restrain her anger, and asked, Since I am from demon race, and you are from human race, we are irreconcilable. Then why did you secretly kiss me when I was sleeping? Huff! Along with the voice of Yao Rao, the entire Little Zhong Mountain thoroughly quieted down. Numerous demon generals simultaneously looked at Yao Rao with astonishment and disbelief, and also lost control of their facial expression. If it was not because there was a problem with their ears, then there must be a problem with Princess Rao's expression. Qin Xuan secretly kissed Princess Rao. Secretly was not the main point. The main point was kissing. The main point was that Princess Rao clearly knew about it, but she didn't stop Qin Xuan. This was simply earth-shattering news. All right. Qin Xuan opened his mouth, but he didn't know how to explain himself. He indeed secretly kissed Yao Rao, but that time he didn't know that Yao Rao was from demon race. Moreover, even now, he still didn't sense any aura of demon race from the body of Yao Rao. What about you? Yao Rao coldly stared at Qin Xuan. Is it very difficult to explain clearly? Facing the overbearing Yao Rao, Qin Xuan was very glad that he was in dragon form. If he was in human form, then the expression on his face would certainly be extremely awkward. Seeing Qin Xuan was at a loss for words, Yao Rao immediately threatened. Qin Xuan, if you don't agree to my invitation, then I will thoroughly kill all the human race in carefree, secret territory. You dare? Qin Xuan immediately warned Yao Rao. If you dare to act recklessly, I will definitely kill you. Then you agree to my invitation and come to my heavenly monster mountain as a guest. Yao Rao didn't back down. If you don't come, then I will kill whoever I see. Hearing this, Qin Xuan couldn't help but have a headache. He didn't understand. Why must he go to heavenly monster mountain as a guest for no reason? Isn't it good for us to have a lively fight? You are from demon race, and I am from human race. Can you not talk like flirting? Just when Qin Xuan was having a headache, suddenly a very familiar shout came from afar. Boss! Boss! Help! Chapter 4:27. Hearing this familiar cry for help, Qin Xuan could not help but turn his head to look in the direction of the sound. He saw a battered and exhausted figure covered in blood running wildly on the ground toward Little Zhong Mountain. Behind him, a huge, spider-like monster with many legs was letting out a sharp hiss as it attacked the figure in front of it again and again. Chen Changxing. At this time, Qin Xuan had already recognized that the person who was running for his life was his good brother, Chen Changxing. Without another word, he immediately roared and pounced on the multi-legged monster. He spat out a dragon's breath, and the violent power of thunder fell, enveloping the multi-legged monster. An astonishing power fluctuation erupted, but was unable to cause any damage to the multi-legged monster. Bang! The azure dragon swung its dragon tail and swept it fiercely on the body of the multi-legged monster. It made a dull, thunderous roar and finally overturned the multi-legged monster on the ground. Hiss! The multi-legged monster let out an angry hiss and quickly got up from the ground. Just as it was about to raise its hard and sharp front claws to attack the azure dragon in front of it, the azure dragon attacked first. It fiercely pressed its claws on the monster's head. Its 5 fingers closed, but the sharp knuckles were unable to pierce through the multi-legged monster's hard skull. Qin Xuan's golden pupils widened as he stared at the multi-legged monster that he had pinned to the ground. Although this thing's attack power wasn't considered strong, The hardness of its carapace had completely exceeded his expectations. Roar! Qin Xuan roared to the sky and opened his mouth again to spit a dragon's breath at the multi-legged monster. This time, the dragon's breath was more turbulent and violent than the previous 2 times. The terrifying power poured down on the multi-legged monster and slowly eroded the hard shell of the multi-legged monster. The multi-legged monster screamed in pain and struggled with all its might. However, Qin Xuan firmly held it down and did not give it any chance to escape. Finally, after 2 minutes of erosion, the multi-legged monster's shell was finally completely eroded by the dragon's breath, revealing the flesh hidden within. When the dragon's breath touched the flesh, the multi-legged monster suddenly let out an extremely sharp and ear-piercing wail. The strength of its struggle was obviously increased, and it almost broke free from Qin Xuan's suppression. With the appearance of a strong stench, the multi-legged monster's struggle gradually became weak until finally there was no sound at all. All the demon generals and human cultivators in the vicinity of Xiaozhong Mountain had witnessed the whole process of Qin Xuan killing the multi-legged monster. They were amazed by the strength of the multi-legged monster and were also shocked by the strength of Qin Xuan. If they were to face this almost indestructible monster, perhaps only death would await them. In the distant sky, Yaorao's sparkling eyes were looking at Qin Xuan. That pure dragon's might and powerful dragon's breath were absolutely the characteristics of pure dragon race. She was not mistaken. Huff! Qin Xuan spat out the last dragon's breath. His eyes were slightly tired as he looked at the corpse on the ground. Breathing in that strong stench, he could not help but slightly frown. After that, he looked at Chun Chongqing, who was lying on the ground not far from him, and was still in shock. What the hell is going on here? When he said these words, Qin Xuan had already changed back into human form from dragon form. He quickly walked in front of Chun Chongqing. After checking that Chun Chongqing's body had only suffered some injuries and was not seriously injured, he was relieved. After that, he took out a healing liquid from his storage ring and delivered it to Chun Chongqing's mouth. Chun Chongqing stretched out his hand and grabbed the healing liquid. After drinking it in one gulp, he gasped for breath and said to Qin Xuan, "Boss, don't worry about me. Quickly go and save by you and others." Hearing Chun Chongqing's words, Qin Xuan's complexion slightly changed as he asked, "What the hell is going on here?" Chun Chongqing sat up, and while gasping for breath, he said to Qin Xuan, "After we entered carefree secret territory, according to the agreement, we went to Zijin Palace to gather. After we gathered, we left Zijin Palace and prepared to go to other places to look for opportunities. But by coincidence, we found a treasure land that no one had ever found before. Just when we were exploring that treasure land, a transmission channel suddenly appeared in the sky, and then many mutants riding this kind of monster came out of the transmission channel. When those mutants saw us, they immediately attacked us. We escaped from that treasure land with great difficulty, but the mutants were still chasing after us. We had no choice but to scatter and escape. On the way, I met some people, and they told me that you were in this direction, so I brought this monster to look for you." After telling the whole story in one breath, Chun Chongqing once again took a deep breath. Just when he was about to say something, his complexion suddenly changed, and he howled in pain. "Ayo, ayo, ayo." So painful. While howling in pain, Chun Chongqing used his hand to forcefully scratch the wound on his body. He saw that the wound that had just healed under the effect of the healing liquid was actually torn open again, and some jet black blood flowed out. And in this blood, tiny black insects were crawling here and there, which looked extremely frightening. Seeing this scene, Qin Xuan turned pale with fright. Just when he didn't know what to do, Yaorao's figure suddenly appeared beside him and said to him, "Get out of the way." Qin Xuan subconsciously got out of the way. Yaorao raised the feather fan in her hand and lightly waved it towards Chun Chongqing. Then those jet-black blood and insects were peeled off from Chun Chongqing's body by a mysterious power and fell on the ground. After that, Yaorao flicked her left hand's finger and a scarlet flame fell on the ground. In a blink of an eye, those jet-black blood and insects were completely burned away, leaving only a dense stench floating in the air. Qingchuan took a glance at unconscious Qin Chongqing. Then again looking at Yaorao, he asked, "What's going on here?" It should be when that monster was attacking him. It had buried insect eggs inside his body. Then you gave him the healing liquid, and when his body was absorbing the nutrients in the healing liquid, those insect eggs were also catalyzed. Then the scene we saw just now occurred. Yaorao simply explained to Qingchuan the reason for the abnormal condition of Qin Chongqing's body. Then, with grave complexion, she said to Qingchuan, "In the past, only us monster race and you human race could enter carefree secret territory. This is the first time I heard that eccentrics could enter here." Having heard what was said, Qingchuan frowned and said, "Could it be the aboriginals of the unexplored region of carefree secret territory?" "It shouldn't be." Yaorao shook her head. "If it is the aboriginals, then there is no reason for them to appear through transmission channel. Moreover, I also have some understanding of these eccentrics." Qingchuan was startled upon hearing what was said. "You have seen these eccentrics?" You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.